And we are live, coming at you from a few different locations. So, what is up, everyone? Let us know what branch of service you were in, times that you serve, where you're at. Coming at you live. Got some folks with us here. So, kind of we'll have the team kind of coming in different places. But I'm DP. Welcome to Friday Night Live. We're doing a recap of last week. We had some technical difficulties with an Arctic storm that kind of went through, so that took us out a little bit. And obviously, Brian apparently has changed appearances and has Amy here because the fact that they're also affected by where they're at. So you'll see them in the comments. So we have Nayeli and we have Reggie here today. With that being said and done, my name is DP, founder of Veterans Network Champions Club. Let us know in the comments the branch of service that you were in, and we will go from there. Reggie and Nayeli, I'll let you all introduce yourself. So, ladies first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nayeli, Navy veteran. The Navy has taken over
Uh oh.
this Friday.
Uh oh.
No Army, no Air Force. The Navy is in the house.
Oh Lord, not the Navy takeover. Goodness
The
gracious.
Navy takeover, yes.
Uh, so yeah, tell the people a little about yourself, and then we'll go to the other Navy folk that we
The other
have.
Navy folks.
Yes.
I am, again, Navy. I am a 100% disabled veteran and a veteran spouse. I've been working in the claim space, give or take, about 10 years. Unofficially worked my husband's claim for a while. Then I started working on my claim finally. Landed a VSO job for a little bit while trying to figure out my claim. I walked into an office and they're like, hey, why do you know so much about claims and you're here asking for help?
Mm-hmm.
And then I couldn't say no. I didn't know how to say no. Shocking, right? So I ended up working there for a little bit. I didn't like all the red tape and all the things that the VA doesn't do. So then I left and I found some amazing people, champions a few years back, and then here I am still working with VNCC, helping veterans, doing a little bit of social media, just a little bit of everything in the background. I don't like showing up a lot, but here I am. Happy to be here tonight.
When in doubt, she will pop on in. So I love it. Um, but no, glad to have you on. I'll let you introduce. I'll let you pass it over to your other Navy brethren.
And my shipmate, Reggie.
Man, oh man, what can I say? This is a rarity because most time, a lot of us native folks, we do it here sometimes by ourselves. But today I got my sister from another mother here, my shipmate, so I don't feel so lonesome. And it is awesome to be here tonight. I used to be in the line shack, so I started from the bottom while we're here. And I used to launch and recover the F-18s, Foxtrots, Super Hornets, and then also I cross-rated to being a glorified OS, just a glorified peace sweeper. and then, then along with that, start working on my claim. Uh, no, actually, I got rated when I got out, but it was just basically peanuts and lowball. And that's when somebody nearest and dearest to me said, hey, you need to get off your butt and get on your stuff because you have a lot going on. And lo and behold, my shipmate here, she actually started out with me and gave me some great tools. And that's when
Fun fact.
things, yeah, I remember it. She was like, she said, hey, you got to do the work. It's not going to happen by you sitting there praying all day. You got to put the work into it. You got to get stuff done and get the right tools and resources. So lo and behold, now I'm at the percentage that I'm grateful for. But most of all, I'm grateful to be in a space to help to give back to other veterans and brothers and sisters out there who's just been fighting and just been stuck in the trenches for so many years,
Mm-hmm.
atrociously, due to unforeseen circumstances. So, anywho, I'm gonna pass it back to my brother, DP.
Well, no, while you're at it, pass it on over to another Navy veteran. Like,
Oh,
Navy.
the Navy is in the building in many more ways than one. We got Jerry in the building as well. So, Nieli, I will let you hand it on over to your Navy brethren since I am the only Army guy today.
Yes, we're gonna kick the DP off. Jerry has it. Jerry's gonna take over. The Navy's taking over. Jerry, introduce yourself.
It's a Navy takeover. Hey, Jerry.
It is.
woo.
Oh, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
It's a Navy makeover, a takeover.
There it is.
Yes, Navy
There it is.
takeover.
I don't. Uh-oh.
I'm pleased
Look
to
at
be
the
here tonight.
negativity.
I'm sorry I couldn't be with you guys in Colorado. I really missed that trip, and really sorry I couldn't be there. But I'm here tonight, and have had a good day. So I hope to learn a lot about what you guys did at the meetup,
Hmm.
and thanks for having me in.
Yeah. No, we appreciate having you on with us. Obviously, like I said, this is one of those things that matters a lot to us. So we have Lisa here saying, "Holy cow, the Navy has landed in force." So there's that part. Let's see. We got Lisa Chaser in the building. So appreciate you. We got Brian saying, hold steady, Jerry." So Brian is watching. He's also in Oklahoma and Colorado. They have some different storm fronts kind of happening, so they're kind of in and out with reception. So we figured, hey, we'll kind of press with who we have here and show up. So we have a few people here in a few different places. So let's see, on TikTok side of the house, we got Joe Meandris, U.S. Air Force. Bramble Actual says, "Thank you for all that you're doing." We have Lunatic Lane Boy as well, tuning on in. So thank you for tuning on in. Let's see, we got folks from the group as well. So got some shout outs. Let's see. Brian says, "Dang, I can't believe I let DP alone with all these Navy folks. Stay strong. I'm bringing buckets to bail you out." So, worst case scenario, I'm just catching a transport. So I'm just going to try to keep my composure and not go too crazy before I get drowned because I don't have my sea legs. Um, but no, it's great to have you on with us, Jerry. Obviously, we couldn't have you with us in the building last week, but it was a great time. One of many. So we'll talk a little bit about how that went and some plans that we have going forward. So you couldn't make it to the last one, but a little birdie told me we might have to replot where we're going. So on the table, I've heard we may have to go to North Carolina or to Texas. I'm leaning toward North Carolina. I don't know who's out there, but I'm just putting it out there. So one way or the other, trust me, we're gonna pitch a tent somewhere close to you,
Yes.
and bring you on over. So best believe that. But first of all, let's just put something in perspective. I'm gonna have to draw a divide. Yes, Navy has taken over, but me and Jerry looking pretty smooth with these little shirts, though. I'm just gonna put it out there. Look at that. Come on
Yes.
now.
Woo, y'all swagged out now.
Yes.
Hey. I mean, we're blinged out. Lisa says North Carolina for sure. Brian says yes to North Carolina. So, but it was a great time. So let's kind of jump right into it. Nieli, you were by far one of the. Let's see. Lisa said, "I'm down for North Carolina." So we're getting some votes already, Jerry. So
Oh my
I'm not.
Texas. Okay, I need Texas to show up for me.
So here's the
Texas.
vote. Do we go to Texas or do we go to North Carolina? That's really been the big push there. So as far as where we go, we're looking at that. So again, some of the comments we're bringing up.
All I'm gonna say is that the tacos are only a go if it's Texas, and
Oh Lord.
the homemade flour tortillas are only a go if the meetup is in Texas.
I don't know about all this negativity happening right now.
That's on the table. I'm just saying. I'm not persuading anyone. I'm not trying to bribe anyone. I'm just saying, if you want
Jerry,
tacos, if you want homemade flour tortillas, vote for Texas.
Jerry, I feel like there seems to be a little bit of persuasion for Texas happening here. So I don't know how I feel about this, but we might have to talk about it a little bit. So that's the vote, folks. It's either Texas or
Texas.
North Carolina. But let's start on a positive note. For those that know, We were in Colorado last week with a few of our teams, so hopefully for the next one, once kind of the weather system passes, because the internet and all that stuff was kind of jacked up, but hopefully we'll be able to get more of the crew for the next show. Let's start with the fact that Nayeli almost lost her life getting tacos, so that's a positive note to bring up there. I'm sorry, that probably doesn't sound
A
positive to
positive
some people.
note,
but-
yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank
So
you
give us
very
the
much.
background to the taco situation, because the people need to know. Because we have in TikTok, some people are saying Houston is in the house, put us on
Houston,
game.
yes.
So number 9
Houston.
says Houston, Texas. So we have some comments there. Lisa Chaser says nothing but love for Houston, Texas. Let's see. Austin says stars at night shine bright deep in the heart of Texas. I don't know what's
See,
going
there
on
you
here.
go.
There's a lot of.
There you go. Texas.
Lisa says we've got
TikTok
Southern
is on board
hospitality.
for Texas.
Well, look, we got Southern hospitality and Southern food here too. East Coast Southern. So I'm gonna say Lisa is representing the North Carolina crew.
Hold up. I'm
TikTok
about
is
to do
representing
kitty pop
Texas
up
though.
here. North Carolina, take your shirts off, bring
Oh,
around
Lord.
like a helicopter.
There it
Hey.
is.
Keep the shirt on, Reggie. Keep the shirt on.
Someone said if I
Yeah,
had
I
to
definitely
vote,
shirt
I
on.
would go for North Carolina.
Oh my goodness. TikTok is on board with Texas though.
George says North Carolina. Jody, what are you saying? Let me see. Jody, I see her in the comments as well in the group. Jody hasn't voted yet. So if you're seeing us on YouTube, we can bring up the names the way it pops up on a private group, just so you all know. It kind of shows up this way, so I know who is the person commenting because I actually opened the group. So this is George speaking there. Oh, wait a second. See, this is Jody for the record. North Carolina.
Oh my goodness. Jody, I was counting on you, Jody.
We got Curtis Bruce in the building on the TikTok side of the house. Curtis is Navy 86-90. But first of all, we get ahead of ourselves. Let's give it back to Jerry. Jerry, let us know the time that you were in, a little bit about background for those that don't know. They've seen you in the comments, but over to you, Jerry, for the years you were in and your branch as well, my brother.
Okay. I've been working with Brian Lofton for a couple of years. I was in the Navy 1966 through 1979. Did a Vietnam tour, and I did a lot of things. I was enlisted and I was an officer, and I was on ships and I was on airplanes. So I did all kinds of things in the Navy. Had a good time. Wish I could have stayed in. Just wasn't in the cards. But right now I'm 70% disabled rated by VA for PTSD and hearing loss and tinnitus. And got my TDIU in. I check it every day. And it's I've had my C&P exam, so it's in the final throes of review. So I'll be 100%.
Very good. So one comment actually came. So we have on TikTok, number 9 says, "Let's go, Mr. Jerry. You are cool school." So take that one to the bank. Not old school, cool school. So cool school for you. And yeah, so that's a good question. A Mustang, ain't it? That's what we call them in the Army. In the Army,
Yeah.
we call them Mustangs if you go enlisted to officer. So I assume the same thing
Right.
on your side, correct?
Right.
There you go. So there's 2 more acronyms to add to Jerry's list, right? We got cool school and a Mustang. So
Yeah.
there's that part.
Yeah.
In my mind, even though I think that, you know, and I'm picturing Jerry literally driving around a Mustang doing wheelies. So, Naila, didn't you have a Mustang at some point?
I did.
Uh-oh.
I did.
Oh wow.
Uh-oh.
I did.
Uh-oh. Was that
Was it a
a
5?
was that a impulse buy? You know what? We're gonna come back to that.
It,
Take us
it
back.
was. It was an impulse buy. My husband says I have like life crises every like 5 years, 10 years. So when
So
I
like
turned
micro life crisis.
25, yes. So
Got it.
when I turned 25, I was like, I think I want a Mustang. I've always wanted a Mustang because like I turned 18, but like I turned 18 in boot camp, so that didn't happen, and then joined the military and all that stuff. So I never really got it. So I was like, you know what? I think I want a Mustang. Like I'm having a life meltdown at 25. So I bought a
Jerry is literally
Mustang.
over there spinning in his chair, going, "Wait, what? You had a meltdown at 25?
Yes.
Goodness gracious!"
Hmm.
So I bought a Mustang. I literally actually just got rid of it. I think like 2 years ago. I finally gave it up, and I was like, okay, I need a mom car because a Mustang for road trips is not it with two kids. Um,
Uh, well, we have some
yeah, but
support for you.
the way my driving record is with speeding tickets, I couldn't like my record couldn't afford a 5.0, but that's in the talks now. Like now that my daughter is driving, and she's like, "Can I have your car?" And I'm like, "That sounds like a plan. I could get a 5.0 now."
Oh
So
Dios.
if I pop up with
So,
a 5.0 next year,
Jerry, we're gonna have to hold a prayer circle after this. We need
yes,
Vernon, and we're gonna need Dennis on TikTok. You have some support, so let's see. Number 9 says, let's see, what did he say? Well, Curtis
his
Bruce,
first
how are
car.
you? Currently 90, trying to get to 100. We'll discuss and answer some questions there. Number 9,
Mm-hmm.
30% April. Young Private Jerry. So he's dubbed himself as Young Private Jerry. So there's that part. K.E. Argro said, a Mustang was my first car as a freshman in college. Number 9
Mm.
says, in the Stang. Laudat Army
Yes.
2004 to present. And here, the anonymous, comment there, that is Jody. Jody is my new friend.
Jody, I am shocked.
Jody is not trying to go. So for those that are just tuning in, we're taking a vote.
Jody.
TikTok, let us know as well. So our next meetup, we're looking at either Texas or we're looking at North Carolina. We're biased a little bit. Nayeli is in Texas. Jerry is in North Carolina. So there's the line. It's a battle of the Navy.
Well, when you put it like that,
What?
when you put it like that, I just may have to say for Jerry,
Hmm.
I
Speaking
will
to the mic, please.
consider
Speaking to the mic, please.
for huh?
Speaking to the mic. My hearing, the good ear.
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
For Jerry, I will consider North Carolina. But if I go to North Carolina, the only person that gets tacos is Jerry.
Okay, wait a second. We might have to reevaluate this.
No, because I almost lost my life to get you tacos in Colorado. So if I have to budge and go to North Carolina for Jerry, Jerry gets tacos.
Oh Lord. We might have to take
Jerry and
this.
Dennis get tacos if
I
I
can do
have to
that.
budge.
There you go.
Somebody said, why don't we just do halfway? And I think that may be a plan. Halfway between North Carolina and Texas.
What? Memphis, Nashville.
We could do that.
There you go.
We could do Nashville. Can you imagine us going down to Nashville?
Number 9 said just DoorDash them. So there's that part. Um, let's see who wrote this one. I'm trying to pull up the comment real quick. Let's see. So we know where Jody sits. Um, let's see. Lisa said, "God bless you, Jerry. Nothing but absolute love, respect, and gratitude for you, darling." So some love there. Lisa said, "No offense, because tacos are yummy, but North Carolina crab boil." Wait a second. Now we're switching it up a little bit. Hello. Switching it up just a little bit. And see, on TikTok side, let's see. North Carolina says Screws. Curtis Bruce, rather. Number 9 said flip a coin.
Flip a
We can also
coin.
DoorDash it. Sandra Army,
Hmm
91 to 2000. Go Army, National Guard, 2000 2001. Army Reserve, 2001 to 2002. Let's see. And I can't see the name, but I was AO, lift heavy all the time, never went to medical, 4 back, due to stigma, can still file. Yeah, and we'll answer some VA claims questions as well as they're kind of popping up. But the people want to know something, Nayeli. Let us know about the fact that we almost lost you to some tacos. People need to know the story. What happened?
So I almost lost my life twice in Colorado. One, because they almost froze me to death. Um, and then I almost lost my life on the way to go get tacos. And you figured I'd like say, "Hey, let's go home." Like we're not even halfway there. We kept going.
Hmm.
we kept going. So Vernon and I wanted to introduce everyone to barbacoa tacos.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in the wrong place for that because I couldn't find a place that sold barbacoa by the pound, and I was like, what kind of place am I in? Like, who doesn't do that? So I found a restaurant, had amazing reviews, but they didn't DoorDash.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't DoorDash. So we tried that. I think somebody said on TikTok, we tried DoorDash and they wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we went out there. Amy was so gracious to drive me out there, and we spun out. The night before, it had snowed. The roads were icy.
Mm-hmm.
She said it didn't look so bad before we left the house. So
That was
she
the
was
first
like,
mistake
I'll
you
take
had.
you. I mean, I trusted her with my life, so I was like, she wouldn't lie. She's from Colorado. Like these are her streets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrong.
We actually have
um,
a video of Amy and Nayeli going to get
that
tacos.
literally was us. That was us on the way to tacos, and I
Mm-hmm.
still went to go get y'all tacos, but it was worth it. Dennis said he never had tacos for breakfast, and
You
he
did.
loved them, so it was worth risking my life to get Dennis some tacos. So I guess I'll owe it to Jerry. Jerry, I'll go get you tacos too, even if it's snowing. I'll go get you tacos. But
Well, I don't think it'll be
that was
snowing by the
good.
time we get down there, so I think we'll be
Snow,
fine.
rain, whatever. We'll go get Jerry tacos too. So yeah, I almost it could have been bad, but Amy's a great driver. I have to say, I was surprised.
She kept you alive, and
we
you didn't, you know.
She kept me alive. Yes.
We got a
So
restaurant that's about a mile away that's got a taco truck. We'll just have the taco truck show up here.
Yes, we could do
that's
that. We
half the
could bring the
battle.
tacos to us.
Yeah,
Yes.
make them fresh.
Yes.
That's half the battle. Let's see here,
Yes.
and here is literally uh, little Dennis action, having some barbacoa tacos for the first time.
Yes.
So we introduced Dennis to some tacos, and we also got a chance to spend some time doing some of that. So that was actually pretty cool.
Yes.
So, Nelly, on your side, because again, speaking of being able to kind of get together, we're joking around a little bit about obviously the get together, but tell us a little bit about some of the highlights for you outside of the tacos, spinning out and almost losing your life twice, and now being subjected to potentially another spin out in ice. But
Right.
um, give us a little background as to, what are you thinking? How was your trip? First impressions, last impressions.
So, full disclosure, I did not want to go on this trip. Um, my anxiety just was all over the place. I don't like meeting new people. Let alone like having to stay in a house of people that I don't know. Um, so like I shared with you guys like before, whenever I met you and like the rest of the crew, like, I had spent like hours upon hours like on work meetings and Zoom and all that stuff. So like I felt comfortable. So like walking in like 3 years ago and meeting y'all was like didn't phase me because again we spend so much time together online. Amy and I would always be on the phone like outside of work too, so it was like I knew her. But like the idea of like meeting new people, like having to stay there, like the age difference, like kind of just was like do we have to like not necessarily act a certain way, but like I've always tried to be respectful and mindful of my like surroundings and my environment. It was like you know the age difference between like all the members, and like obviously wanted to be respectful to Jerry and Dennis and stuff like that and like the backgrounds. So my anxiety was like all over the place. I didn't want to go. I didn't want no part of it. This time around I was like, I want to go work. I want to go get things done, and like that's it. Like I don't care about like the socializing, like the interaction. Like I was just so antsy about it. So I talked to my counselor and she was like, I can literally see that you're psyching yourself out about this. It's not going to be this bad. Like, just, take a deep breath. Like, you're going to be fine. Like, you may be surprised. Just go in with an open mind. And I was like, okay. And then my husband, And, sometimes I was like, am I psyching myself too much into this? Because normally I'd say like I'm a social person, but I can go out, say hi to people and interact with people, but I'm coming to my house. I'm coming back to like my safe space. So again, I just did not want any part of it. I went, Amy was like, come on, like, you have to come. Um, and I will say that I couldn't have been like any more wrong. Like I enjoyed it. The whole age difference was not a thing. Actually, my highlight of the trip was getting to interact with Dennis, getting to know Dennis, talking to Dennis. That man is sharp.
Mm-hmm.
That man is sharp. Like he kept us on our toes. Just the wisdom, the stories, the advice, his perspective, just everything was amazing. Like I really, really enjoyed getting to talk to Dennis and then Vernon. So I left with the Grandpa Dennis and Uncle Vernon. Um, I just had such a great time again, just getting to talk to Dennis. You joke about like the 40-80, your 40, Dennis is 80, Iraq, era, Vietnam era, but just that camaraderie. And it's true, like it really is. And again, I was literally just psyching myself out, but it's like sometimes when you walk into a veteran space, it's like that like instant connection that you have with somebody, and it was generally that. So I did have a great time. Like Dennis was like the kind of like the highlight of my trip, getting to talk to him. His advice for us as a team, as individuals, seeing him interact, and to like my, I guess like my, I wouldn't say negative side, but just again like my anxiety, just being so negative about going into a new space, to hear him say some of the things throughout the weekend, like that we made his day, like, his weekend, like he hadn't been that active in a long time. Um, how we, gave him purpose again. Like, I was like, this is what DP's vision is. And like, as afraid as I was, like, this meant everything for him. So the first day that I heard him say that, it was like, I really overthought everything for no reason. Like, it's okay. And again, like, even from the backgrounds, we're so different. The age difference is so big. Our backgrounds, Jerry's a very religious man, but he's not in your face with advice. It's not like pushing you to do things. Reggie's a very holistic person, but he wasn't like, don't pick up a drink or don't pick up a soda or like any of that. So I think that everybody's personality, like we just were respectful of each other. We weren't in each other's face about our own beliefs. Dennis stayed up with us till like 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30
Mm-hmm.
in the morning. So I was like, what? It's past your bedtime, Dennis. I don't want your when you get back home and your bedtime is like all thrown off. Vernon, getting to talk to Vernon as well. So Reggie's just so much fun to be around, like his singing. Miranda, just everybody, I've already been around Amy, I've been around you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so coming out, it was something completely different than what I had psyched myself into before going there. So I really enjoyed it. It was a good time.
And I 100%. And this is literally one of the pictures. So again, we've been doing this with Veterans Network Champions Club VNCC for quite a few years now. We've been doing this show for a while. Jerry, you've been watching this show and been with us for years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry was supposed to be with us, but he couldn't make it. So it's just one of those things where now that's why we're voting for Texas or North Carolina. So for the redo. But what's interesting is, to Naomi's point, looking at this picture, this really to me was the funniest thing, right? Here you have, so first of all, we got shirts made and everything, so hence, me and Jerry over here rocking shirts. But we took a bunch of pictures, which again you'll see, throughout the content and things that we put out there. But this to me was amazing because you literally have an 80-year-old Vietnam veteran and a 40-year-old Iraqi veteran, right? So there's a
Mm-hmm.
40-year gap between us. And the funny thing is, we're literally wearing the exact same clothes by complete coincidence. We're both wearing Crocs. We're both wearing jeans. We're both wearing the same shirt. And we look at each other like, wait a second, what's going on here? And it goes to show, to Naomi's point, that being able to create a space where it's not like, oh, Jerry, I can't relate to you because of age, or then it wasn't in that time frame, or Dennis or Vernon, that was not the case at all. If anything,
Oh.
it was really healthy to be able to just, we literally had a chaplain with us. So, Vernon, who's our chaplain, having Dennis, who's our oldest veteran, and then us, and just being able to sit around and talk and glean information, right? Which was amazing to be able to hear stuff, you know what I'm saying? And what it meant to people, being able to be a part of what we're doing, So that to me, I think was the biggest takeaway, because sometimes you have an idea, but to see it actually happen, to me, that was the most powerful piece of seeing veterans coming together, of seeing us different folks, being a part of this. So, I'm excited for what we accomplished. I'm excited for what's to come. I'm excited to have Jerry with us in the mix on the next one. But having him now,
Mhm.
even, which goes to the point of, hey, there's something that we can learn. And I think that's what's missing in our veteran space, right? Because there's things that Dennis rather shared, that I think were
Mhm.
very powerful for someone like us to hear, for him to talk about his view on life, his relationship, different things. We talked about things. We're all coming from different backgrounds and lives, and no one was judging anybody. Literally, you got some folks having a spritzer and they're just kind of relaxing and hanging out. You got people just kind of being a part of everything. My service dog, going all over the place, getting free rubs from everyone. Dennis got a whole bunch of that. So I got to show Jerry some of those pictures, because Legend is waiting for some Jerry action now. So he got a whole bunch of pork rinds. Somebody was feeding Legend pork rinds. So he was sneaking a little bit of that off. But Reggie, on your side, and then we'll go to Reggie, and then we'll go to Jerry. What are some of your takeaways from the trip?
Man, I will definitely say that it's interesting how everybody just came together and put away their, I would say, assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you assume things and you're wrong. And I can tell you, with me, I'm a natural empath. I'm a hermit. I stay to myself unless I have to get out with people or do things. But one thing I've had to challenge myself is, hey, I need to get out the house. I need to go be around people, because you cannot be a one person island, which I'm on right now, Tahiti. Um, but through it all, we came together, and it was also kind of like therapy in a way, because we have things that we have in common. We all served, and we know that through the camaraderie, we all needed that bond. We needed that time together. And that little bit of time we had together, I mean, it just felt like a home cooked meal.
Mm-hmm.
Nice and wholesome. Everybody felt like they got something from it. Some people got biscuits out of it. Some people got pinto beans out of it. Some people got collard greens out of it. Some people got, even though I don't eat meat, fried chicken out of it. Wherever it was, everybody got something out of it. And it made a meal, so everybody played a part in that meal. And it was just like a Thanksgiving to me internally.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the love that we have from one another. And it was just something where we will all never forget. And I will never forget, because, like I said, again, Dennis, he had so much wisdom, being at his tenured, um, I would say, tenured lifestyle, where he's done seen so much. And it's like, wow, the stuff that you're talking about. We talk about our little things that we got going on, but you was in different time era where there was even more stuff going on, and
Mm-hmm.
you learn how to get through it and to be grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
So just realize that, make the best of the smallest moments. Um, don't hold things against someone, and if something happens, just shrug it off and keep moving. Um, those are things I learned there. And then also too, I learned that you got to figure out a way to, I would say, what's the word I want to use on this one? Try to not say that your way is the only way. When it comes down to, with me, I'm a holistic guy. I eat certain foods, but I figure out a way to say, well, just because everybody's eating certain food, I'm not going to put everybody else down, because certain people live a certain lifestyle, or they have a certain belief
Mhm.
system, and they end up castigating or alienating other people because they think their way is better than other people. Like I said, there's different pathways. Just like 1 + 1 is 2, right? 2 times 1 is 2. You get the same number at the end of the day, same answer. So, we got a lot of things in common, and it was pretty cool. And then I love the fact that Legend, I watched that little buddy. He was right there on you, man. That brother was right there. Everything you was doing, he was watching like a hawk. But at the time, Legend had the time to enjoy himself too. Because we look at ourselves from a human standpoint, but sometimes sit back and look at from an animal standpoint. What did he get out of it? He needed some time too to have fun. So he needed his rubs and a little break and just time to relax as well. So but yeah, it was pretty cool. It was definitely cool. And then also the environment, the weather. It was cold, but it was very scenic. The air was crisp. You go outside and breathe and just take in the atmosphere and just gorgeous, and be thankful for all the landscapes, because some people didn't even wake up to see those landscapes. Some people stuck in hospice. Just like brother Vernon's friend that came over. He was talking about, I'm working with the vets at the hospice side of things, and I'm just like, wow. And because one day all of us may be there, it's going to happen. We're going to have our day of demise, but it's the moment that you enjoy now that's priceless. Those memories that you partake in, those times that you share with one another, those things that people instill in you and what you instill into them. That's what matters the most. So that's what I got from the trip, and I'm just grateful, and I'm excited wherever the trip may be, whether it's Texas, North Carolina. But I would say I can't bash North Carolina because my family is there, and if I say something wrong against North Carolina, they will have me extradited to another planet somewhere. So,
Let
but
me catch up on while you're saying that. So Jody responding from the Facebook group, we share a common bond. That's what I love about the military. Anthony VSO OG said you should get a Subaru, Nieli, and that part as far as that's concerned. So just being able to get some different things there. On the TikTok side of the house, Lotta said, Jerry, you are vibrant, and said, Nieli, you are very eloquent. We got Jasmine in the building, Air Force 2019 to 2023. KE Argro says, also is able to relate, right? Be yourself. Jerry says he wants to have fun too and be part of the mix. KE said same, empath and hermit on her side, as far as that's concerned. And here you'll see, so this is Jerry. Dennis over here trying to steal Legend for a little bit. So there's a few instances where, so there he is looking at me, and he's kind of like, hey, what's going on here? You know what I'm saying? Like, this situation looks a little bit different than we're used to. So there's a little bit of that. To Reggie's point, here we have Reggie apparently over here, having some Legend time randomly. So Legend did a whole lot of, what's that? I'm off duty. Well, guess what? It's rub time. So prepare yourself, Jerry, for some of that. He has an uncanny power of literally going around and getting himself some rubs like that. But just in case you ever wonder, hey, will things be the way they need to be with Reggie in the building? Don't worry. He will make sure that you have all of the disinfectants and cocoa butter that you need to make sure that you are moisturized and you are safe and you are good to go. We had the ladies with us as well. So again, there's a whole bunch of stuff to share, but to be able to literally have, moments like that and, show and spend that time, I thought that was amazing. So just kind of showing a little bit of that. Again, there's, Legend doing his thing. And here's a little picture of the little deceit, Jerry, that took place with a certain somebody right there. See the pork rinds in the background? That's literally pork rind time with Dennis going ahead and, look how attentive he is. I'm like, wait a second. For a second, I think he kind of forgot, like, wait a second, those are the wrong Crocs. What are you doing? my doggy.
Right.
But Legend did have a good time. Here we have a little bit of him out there, kind of getting some outside time. So here's a little Legend in the elements, as far as that's concerned, and to the point that Reggie brought up. I thought this was pretty cool. We took a whole bunch of stuff. It was freezing in some areas, so there's Legend doing his thing, checking in as usual. So if you ever want to find out about what it's like having a service dog, it is intense. Literally, it is a shadow. It is crazy because he'll be doing all that. He's getting his belly rubbed. He's hanging out, but the minute you walk up, he's like, "Whoop! I'm out of here. We're on the move." So, so that was pretty good to be able to spend that time. But Jerry, on your side, kicking it over to you. One, of course, we've told you already offline, but even here online, obviously we missed you, and we wish that you were with us during the trip. But now we're planning, obviously, for the next one. So one way or the other, we have a few things that have to happen. One, we got to get some Legend fur on you, so get ready for that because Legend's coming ready for rubs. So prepare yourself. But for you specifically, right? Again, we weren't able to meet last time. But what does it mean to you to be able to look forward to the next one? Because again, I think that's also something that I think is powerful for people because, sometimes we're disconnected, we may not be able to physically go places and things may preclude us, but at least knowing that there's something to look forward to, right? Something positive, like being able to come together. One, I hope that you're excited for what's to come because we're going to work it out and, Naomi's going to make some tacos for you. So there's that part. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts, Jerry, kind of moving forward for the next meetup, which we're kind of officially calling for North Carolina. You're muted. Unmute yourself. Oh, you're still muted. Hold on.
There we go.
There you go.
I'm really excited about meeting up with you guys. I wanted to be there the last time, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to be. But I think we can work it out. I've been working with my doctors, and I've been doing a whole lot better these past few days. We just changed a few things up. When I got ill a few years ago and couldn't work anymore, it was a real shock to me emotionally. It was really tough making the transition to not being able to work after having had a 40-year career helping the Navy buy ships, airplanes, missiles, guns, and little toys, and I really had a good time there. So, just one of the things that I've learned through the process of doing my claims is you got to forgive quickly, you got to keep short accounts, and you got to dang, I forgot. But they diagnosed me with dementia, so I'm not surprised I forgot. But anyway,
but support and being able to obviously not,
yeah,
support is a big part, obviously.
you bet. And to be able to reach out lately, and you guys have been on the Wednesday night and the Friday nights, and the conversations that I have with Brian through the week. It's been a big part of me touching base. It's been a month since I called the crisis hotline.
Mm.
That's the good news.
Yes.
And so, I've been there. I've been to some tough places, but being with you guys is just it's so fascinating to have this kind of commonality amongst our thinking and our wishes to be friends and just a general love for each other as brothers and sisters in this life.
Yes, and I think that's what I think what's amazing, Jerry, because like we talked a little bit in Colorado, and I'll share with folks here. We just, especially as men, right? We don't talk, we don't ask questions, and we had a moment where, you have Vernon, for example, who is our chaplain, but has been through life, and then you have Dennis as well, right? Going on 81 and married for a long time. And as men, we don't do that thing. And I made the example to Nieli and Amy and said, one thing that we don't do is say, hey, Reggie, so how's it coming along with the kids? Or, how did you do this thing, Jerry? Like, women tend to be a little more open about those things, but as men, it's like, nope, I got it. I'm the man of the house. I'll figure it out. I'm not going to take mentorship. I'm not going to take, advice. I'm not going to reach out. I'm not going to ask because it takes away from me in some shape, fashion, or form. And I think being able to just even listen and have, perspective of, hey, despite the fact that we're geographically spread out, what I love is that we're using, technology to come together. Because right now, you have Texas, you have North Carolina, all the people that are watching us, people in the Facebook group, people in TikTok. No matter where you're at, we're holding space and we're coming together. And the fact that we can make a point to at least try to come together physically and begin to create, opportunities for veterans to come together and spend that time. I think it's powerful. I think it's, to your point, it gives us a reason. One of the things that I'll give it back. I'll toss it to you, Nayeli, that we were literally recording something, and Dennis said some things that literally was just like, all right, stop recording. My heart can't take this no more. And
Yes.
it really kind of hits you like in the little soft spot, that used to have a heart there, because you don't know what stuff means to someone until you hear them say it. So,
Yeah.
Nelly, to you, talk to us a little bit about that part, because
You're gonna
literally we're
make me
sitting
cry
next to.
again.
Well, look, it's not going to be me, so I
Hold
gotta
on, I need
navigate
to
the
give me a
system.
tissue. Like, why didn't you tell me I need a tissue? Because
Whoop.
as I was listening to Jerry, and saying how, like, thanks to you, Brian, VNCC Wednesday nights, Friday nights, like there was a time where we said, we're showing up for Jerry.
Hmm.
If nobody's watching, Jerry's
So
watching.
actually, that's a
I'm
good
not gonna
point.
cry.
No, that's so. Let me jump in and help you. So Jerry, if you've
Wow.
never heard that, I think that's something you should hear,
Yes.
because
Yes.
you have to understand something. And this is not, Nieli's a witness, as is Reggie, but we've been doing this show, folks, for the better part of over 3 or 4 years now on a Friday
I
night,
think
holding
almost like
space.
5 years because I've
Yeah, a
known you
long, long
three. So
time.
I think, yeah.
And Nieli knows this, Amy knows this, Brian knows this. There were times where I'm like, look, I just can't do this anymore, or I'm
Hmm.
done with it, and it'd be like,
Yep.
but Jerry's gonna show up, and I
Yep.
promise you that that's literally what got me through at least the first 2 years, in some shape, fashion, or
Hmm.
form. The
Wow.
fact that you would show up or reach out and say, hey, are we on this Friday, or I'm trying to log on, or I can't make it. It's like, if
Yep.
one person is gonna show up that needs us and we can spend time with, that means everything. And that's
Wow.
something that you've never heard. But
Yeah.
because we're live, I think it's worth you knowing it, because sometimes you may not know. But again, that's, I
Hmm.
think, what we're trying to break down, which is giving people their flowers and letting them know what they mean, because you may feel like, okay, you're part of the organization, you're part of the team, but maybe not so much. And it's like, no, literally, it was one of those things of like, Jerry's going to show up and Jerry's
Yeah.
waiting for
Yeah.
you. And literally that
Wow.
Yeah.
would be what Amy would text me, and when I was in like
Yeah.
my own situations, my own problems, my own, things. And I'm like, you know what? Just forget it. No one's gonna show up. Nobody cares. No, it doesn't matter. Why am I doing this? It'd be like, Jerry's gonna be there, and literally because of that, I'd show up. It was
Hmm.
literally, Jerry's gonna be
Wow.
there waiting for you. So I needed you to know that there were many a times where I know that we've been a source of inspiration and hope for you, but you've been that for me, and many of
Yep.
times over the years.
Wow.
And
Yep.
Nayeli's a witness to that. So I
Yep.
needed you to hear that, because it is a true statement. And this is not from yesterday. This
It
is
is.
literally years ago,
Years.
where I just stood there and I was like, if Jerry's gonna show up, I have to be there. And that was literally what got me on camera many, many, many a times. All right, Nay, back to you.
Wow.
And
No,
it
I,
really is,
mm,
whenever
Mm.
Jerry was sharing how, you guys have gone through some times in VNCC as a whole and showing up. But really, like, there were times where DP's like, I don't want to show up, or I don't want to do it, or like I'm burnt out. And I'm like, suck it up. Jerry's waiting. And sure enough, like you'd email, like, hey, like, are you guys on? Or you'd message. And I'm like, there he goes. Like, you have to show up. So, just know that you've been that for, DP, for the team, for, Brian and Amy. Like, they have to show up because of you. Because, and I've always told DP, if it's just one veteran at a time, just one veteran at a time. And I think that's also the thing that I took out from Colorado. Sometimes in the background, we're so hard on ourselves when things don't go as planned or as we'd like, or something just completely flunks. We just get so hard on ourselves and so down. At least I do, and I know DP's like that as well. And it's just like when we pull back and look at what veterans feel, even if it's just one veteran, if it's just one Jerry, one Dennis, it's like wow, like this is exactly what we wanted, like to build a community where veterans feel comfortable beyond the claims, beyond the business, like the community, like so what DB was talking about, we're recording, and again, my focus was kind of like work. I need him to record content, and we're sitting at the table, and I'm trying to multitask, hearing him record. I'm trying to do my makeup because the photographer's coming, so I'm trying to multitask, and I hear Dennis talking, and I'm just like in tears because he said that he felt alive again that weekend. He felt alive, um,
Yeah.
and that it was good for him to be there.
Uh-huh.
He hadn't felt that in a long time. That he felt purpose, and that's exactly what he needed. And
Yep.
I've shared this with DP. It's like I think my soul needed his wisdom. It needed his advice. It needed to hear his perspective. Because here we are if being so hard on ourselves, like how can we better serve the community that we have, or like this didn't go as planned, or this wasn't the outcome we wanted. But it's like when you pull back, we do have the outcome that DP's vision was to build a community where people feel safe, where people feel comfortable, and to hear him say like we made him feel alive again. I couldn't help it. I just started crying, and I told DP, "Stop! I can't do
Mhm.
this right now." So to hear you say the same, Jerry, it's just like we really are doing what DP's vision was. To create a community where veterans feel safe and comfortable, and that sense of belonging, regardless of age, regardless of anything. I personally at some point felt like, well, do I belong at a VFW, or do I belong at an American Legion? And don't get me wrong, I love the Legion. We're members for a long time because of my husband's grandpa. We spent a lot of time there when we were in town and visiting his family. But like walking into by myself, and probably not the most comfortable space where I could feel comfortable. But online, it's like we get online, we have a community, we interact with people on in comments, via private messages, on lives, and it just feels like we've known each other. It just feels comfortable. It just feels like a safe space. But to hear Dennis say it, it was like, where's the tissue?
Uh-huh.
Um, so it was a good thing, for me personally, to hear that we're doing something, and it means something to somebody, even if it's just one veteran at a time. It means
Yes.
something to someone. Because he also shared that for many years his thing was his chair.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
looking forward to the trip got him to be
Yep.
mobile again, got him going, got him active. Um, so that felt good. That
And he actually shared that, Jerry. So
Mhm.
for him, and you remember this, Jerry, Dennis had contracted COVID and was in the hospital for a period of time. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
he's 80 now, going on 81. And he said, he just kind of stopped. He stopped moving. He was just in his chair recliner, and was just atrophying away, and didn't really have motivation to do much. And when we were like, hey, we're going to Colorado, he got off the chair and started moving and started walking, and he's been regaining his strength. And even now, he's challenged to say, hey, he kept up amazingly, but he's still on the path of getting back his full stamina and things like that. So he
Mhm.
went back, in his mind of saying, hey, for the next meetup, I'm going to keep up with everything. I'm going downtown, I'm
Mhm.
walking, I'm doing stuff. And, to your point too, right? Like you just said, of, hey, we're going to come down, we're going to meet up, we're going to actually see you. So now that gives you that motivation of, hey, let me start to be a little mobile. Let me try to push myself a little bit, because, sometimes we need something. We need something to kind of, give us, a goal or a hope or idea. But Jerry, back to you on your side. Uh, you know, I'm curious to find out, and more so again because people are listening and watching. What does that mean to you? Because I know for a fact that back to what you've meant to us, right? You've shared that publicly, but you probably haven't heard it from us to you. And I think those are things that people sometimes don't hear or don't know. So give us a few of your thoughts, knowing that you know, as much as we've done for you, you've done that for me personally, and for us.
Wow. Okay. Well, I had no idea that that I was that important to you, and I it means a lot to me. It really does. I'm so humbled by your words, and I appreciate you so much being there when I needed you, because I've been in some pretty bad places over the past year, last few months, and uh, to get ready for the next meetup, I've got a physical therapist coming to my home once a week to get my strength up and to get my balance better so that I can be there wherever
Mm,
you're going to have it. If you're going to have it in Houston or Charlotte or wherever.
mm. So that,
So
and that's, what did Brian said? Brian said, "I need a motorized scooter to keep up with Dennis." So there's that part. Ker Gross said
Yes.
because she said, "My mother always taught me to give your all, even if it's just one person, because it may be that one person who needs to hear the message." Um, so and again, this is one of those things where what we're trying to do is reset the conversation to be able to be real, because again, there's just enough of everyone trying to either show off or look good or look at me, and
Yep.
it's like that's not what we're doing, right? It's literally, and again, for me, one of the highlights was being able to share as men. You know what I mean? So actually, so this is so this is personal to me and Reggie, and it's one of those things where you wouldn't um, find many people actually sharing things like this. But this is an image of us having a moment, more so myself having a moment. And I'm sharing it because it's not the flattering thing of like, oh, I'm having a moment and Reggie comes and embraces me and, Vernon is there, and gets up. And it was one of those things where, you just have a moment to be able to release and say how you feel. And as a man, for me to have other men come and be with me, not just in words, but to literally stand up and literally, I think Dennis rather jumped out of his chair like a ninja. And before I knew it, Reggie's behind me. Dennis is there. Vernon is there, and to be able to have that moment where we as men could release and we could feel and we could say, the things that we were feeling. It's not something that happens a lot. And again, it's not one of these, hey, come to this meetup and we're gonna have, around the fire emotional moments. Like, no, it's what the moment calls for, right? We met up, and in meeting up, we were present, and in being present, we were able to share things. And this to me is one of the highlights of being able to have this moment, to be open, to share it with other men, to say, look, here you have the gamut, a 40 year old, a 41-year old, a 60 something year old, a 80-year old, and we're all men. We're all coming together. We're all sharing a moment, and we're being real, and being able to hold each other and lift each other and support each other, because nobody sees all the things that happens behind the scenes. So for me, I think this was a real powerful moment. The second one that actually they caught that was pretty cool actually even had legend, which to me this is like, a whole nother thing. So there you have myself, you have Reggie, you have Vernon, and then you have legend. And he's like, hold on now, hold on now. If we having a whole moment, I need to jump up in here and make sure we're good to go. So I'm sharing this because we have to. The only way we break down stigmas is by being real. And people
Yep.
may see us and may see the videos and may see my page and may see, oh, you guys are all good to go. Like, no, I'm rated just like the next person. I have my issues just like the next person. I have my shortcomings just like the next person. I have my faults like the next person. And I need encouragement and help just like the next person.
yeah,
And to be able to actually have space like that and say, hey, this is the first time that as a man I was able to sit there and just let other men speak life into my life, but not under the guise of like come and have a breakthrough, because I would never show up for that. I don't want to sit here and show up for a thing that's like set to be something. I just like the fact that we were able to be there, and in the moment things were able to be said, and we were able to spend that time. So this is again a very powerful moment, that again, it's not it's not the first, rather it won't be the last, but it's showing that hey, we can do these things, we can share, and then even to the fact that this whole moment happened in front of everybody. So we have women next to us. It wasn't like, oh, men only on this. Like, no, no, no. We're all veterans together going through these things.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask for you, Nieli, how was that for you to be able to see men have a moment like this? Because again, we don't talk about it. And then Reggie, will go to you afterward, as far as kind of what that meant for you as well.
I think that for me, it's just, I mean, it's natural, like you said, for us women to like share and open up and have moments. Like, Amy's seen me cry plenty of times. Um, and so to me, it's just like that refreshing feeling to be able to, one, that you felt comfortable with us in that space. But I think it kind of started for me the night before when we were all sitting in the living room just talking, and we were talking about Reggie's. Everybody talking to Reggie, everybody giving perspective, all of us sharing our lives with each other, and it's like for me. Y'all know me. I don't open up. It was just like it felt safe to talk to Reggie, to talk to Vernon, to talk to Dennis, about things that I don't normally share. So it was just like refreshing to hear y'all talk, to hear Reggie. Because before this, yeah, I talked to Reggie. I get with him on Wednesdays. But I don't know a whole lot about Reggie and his background or how he felt or where he's coming from. But like to hear him talk about, Reggie, with who Reggie is aside from the advisor, who Reggie is as a person, as a veteran. Um, it was refreshing that some of the things that he said, that he was able to express himself like that with all of us, and he felt comfortable and safe just to talk about his feelings, his mental space, and where he's been lately. Um so it felt good for me to hear y'all talk about that. And then the other thing that brought it to me was because and maybe just for me from the social media side, managing the communities and stuff, that I see all the time is comments like, well, men don't talk about this, or us men need to have a safe space, or let's normalize men having feelings, let's normalize men crying, things like that I see on social media from being in the background. It was refreshing to know that you guys do have that whenever we meet up. You guys can have that moment wherever we go, this meetup, the next meetup, and many more to come, like that you guys do have this safe space. And to your point, our meetups aren't planned. We've tried to have agendas even for the work side. It doesn't work. We just go with the flow. We go with the moment. It's not like, hey, come, we're going fishing tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, or hey, come, we're gonna go camping the rest of the day or hiking. It's just come as you are. Let's meet up. If work happens, work happens. But I think that the essence of the meetups have been, let's just share space. Let's get to know each other. Let's talk about whatever we wake up and we'll talk about. Let's sit down and have dinner and talk about whatever comes up. And to have that safe space for y'all, without an agenda behind it, feels good to be able to see. And more so, like, again, we don't know each other's lives on a day-to-day basis. We kind of come here, work, help veterans, talk to veterans, talk claims, tips, tricks, whatever strategy for claims. But then being able to have that space,
Hmm.
felt good.
Reggie, on your side, how was that for you?
I will say it was needed because there's a stigma in society where, especially just men in general, you're not supposed to show any emotion, or if you show emotion, you're a beta male. You're not an alpha male. You're just a weak male. If you show any type of emotions, or you too much in tune to your feminine side, when that's just a bunch of baloney and a bunch of, excuse my French, crap made up in society. And that's why a lot of men in general have a trouble expressing themselves, and trouble not only expressing themselves but loving themselves.
Hmm.
And I know with me at that time and moment, this wasn't rehearsed. This wasn't, oh, let me come out and do, no, 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 no. It was at that time, at that moment, in that particular point of the universe, that moment happened, and it was needed for all of us. To you, to Nieli, to Dennis to Vernon to Brian to Amy to Miranda, everybody, even the legend. Because guess what? He has feelings too. Everybody needed that moment just to say, "Dang, I can be myself. I can just take off this facade that I have and just be myself. I don't have to put a show on nobody. I don't have to worry about somebody judging me or somebody put me into a box or label me. Let me just put myself down and just relax and just let it out. You know, there was a book I read with Jason Wilson called Battle Cry. And in that book, he was talking about how men in general don't know how to release those traumas. And a lot of times it gets bottled up and it comes out in other areas in their life. And when it comes out, it's explosive.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not meaning to make it come out, but it comes out because of the fact that they never had a chance to release it. So they spaz out on the child, spaz out on the wife, either spaz out on themselves. And then if they don't spaz out on somebody else, then it comes out in their body. Hypertension, strokes, brain aneurysms, heart attacks. One of the things I'm learning is that I don't want to go too off the kilter, but I went to a ceremony. I told you about. I went to a indigenous ceremony some months ago, and this shaman brother of mine, I see him like family to me. Native American brothers and sisters, they basically told me, you got to open up your heart. You got to open up that heart. People say the heart chakra. You got to open up that heart. That is the gateway and the portal that you can open up. And when you open up that heart and start healing, that's when things will start be able to happen, and you better move forward in your life. It may not be right now that you heal. It may take time. And sometimes things won't be 100%. Don't see it as perfection. See it as just you just trying to take steps to move better and better each day. And that's where I really had a chance to make a crossroads within myself. So, I'm gonna do better being more open and not worry about what people think about me. Because end of the day, in this lifetime, you only get one shot. We only get one chance. And that one chance that you got is where you make the best moment for other people. And you may say one word that may affect somebody else to get them to propel in different areas of their life so they can love other people around them. They may be able to start saying to their wife or to the spouse, you know what, babe, I love you. It may not be every day. It may be once a month. But it may be able to open them up just to at least say that. And that spouse be able to say, you know what? Thank you. I need to hear that. Or just to hug them. And at that moment, I really appreciate the brethren, the sisterin. It was just, man, it was needed.
And I think that goes back to like what we shared with Jerry just now. Uh, that's the biggest problem that we have, right? As human beings, it's that we just don't tell people anything. You know what I'm saying? Like Jerry, we're celebrating that. Hey, it's been over 4 weeks or a month since you've had the call, the hotline. But did what you meant to us? And I think for us, sometimes the problem is we understand depression, but everybody who's been down that negative place where you've weighed out options and you thought to yourself, hey, I just can't do it anymore. There's the aspect of detachment that plays into this, because we all think about, well, will anybody notice if I don't show up anymore, right? Will anybody care if I'm not here anymore? If I choose to check out, you know what I'm saying, from this existence, who's going to matter? Who's going to care? And being able to give people flowers and tell them what they mean to us, sometimes we have to pick up the words. To Reggie's point, there's something that Dennis said that I thought was interesting, right? So he shared, for example, and again, as he's more, advanced in age and, life becomes a little more finite, he shared about the fact that sometimes he walks into, the living room or the kitchen and tells his wife, hey, I needed a hug. You know what I'm saying? I need to, feel you right now. I need a hug. And even that, it's so simple because it's something that I've never actually said like that. right? In my world, it's like maybe I need a hug, but I won't ask for it. I assume or expect that I should get it if I do a thing. And the fact of just being able to be direct and to the point of like, well, Jerry knows what he means to us. Yeah, but not fully. Like, tell him what you meant, right? If I'm having a, and especially as men, right? One of the things that my wife shared with me a while back, not too long ago, Trevor Noah talked about this. But for men specifically, right, there's always this concept of, oh, we want intimacy or we want to have sex or whatever. And sometimes it's sometimes that's the only way that sometimes men are able to have intimacy because it's easier just to say, hey, let's go ahead and have sex versus I want to hug. I want to feel you. I want to be held.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the fact that that's what happens during intimacy, it's like, no, it's not the act of actual sex itself. It's the intimacy aspect. But our inability as men to be able to just ask for things or say things or even know, like, hey, do I have to wait until I'm 80? Or do I have the benefit now of hearing Dennis say something that makes me think, oh, wait a second? Or hearing Jerry say, despite the negativity, because again, we could look at the negativity of, diagnoses and things he's dealing with, but then I'm curious to say, well, in light of everything that's happening, how do you view life now, right? How do you embrace the moments? How do you appreciate the moments? And that's something that we don't have to wait until we get a diagnosis that's, negative, or we don't have to wait till we're 80 or we're on our death's bed to be able to hear all the things that we never knew. It's right now we need to do that, right? And being able to say no. There's times when Jerry might have been picking up the phone thinking, hey, I'm in this space now, but unbeknownst to him, it's him that got me through a moment, but he never knew that. And it's one of those things where, like, in your mind, it's like, well, no one cares, and it's like farther from the truth. If anything, all these years, that's been something that, again, how do you say that? But breaking down these walls and these stigmas and being able to say, to the spouse, hey, I need a hug, or I want to be held now, or hey, Jerry, this is what you meant to me. These are the moments where I've had, like, what? Why do I do this? No one's going to care. No one's going to show up. No one's going to matter if I don't do a thing, but Jerry's going to be there. And that was enough to push me through. And that's one of those things that, God forbid, you never hear it. You never know it. And then afterward, you know how it goes, right? People pass on, and then you stand there by a casket, and you say all the nice things to someone that they never heard in life. That had they heard those things, what would it have done? If I told Reggie what he meant to me today, would that thwart off a thought? Or say, you know what, I got to make it to North Carolina? Because sometimes that's really what it comes down to. As hard as it gets, it's like, you know what, one way or the other, here's the reality. We're going to North Carolina or we're going to go to Texas. But one way or the other, Yellie's making tacos and Jerry's going to eat those tacos. And Legend's going to be on Jerry. And it's one of those things where, as veterans, here's the reality. Maybe that's what gives Jerry the push to get up the chair tomorrow and go for the extra lap and say, you know what, I got to get ready to roll, because when the time comes for us to go, I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up, because now I have, and again, and we've said this many a times, it's like, Jerry, I better see you on the next one. I'm going to come looking for you. And inadvertently, we're almost holding each other accountable without even realizing it. But coming back to a place where we don't have to wait until after the fact to say these things. And being able to actually say what people mean to us, it's something that, we break down like this, right? We don't have to show that everything is right. No, we're broken people. But the great part is that we get to be broken people together and begin to piece the pieces and showing other men what's possible, showing women what's possible, being able to talk about intimacy, being able to talk about the fact of why do we do the things that we do. And again, to Nieli's point, without a set agenda, because sometimes that's also the problem. Like, I don't want to go to breakthrough at 5 o'clock to be all, like, no. I don't want to do that thing. I want to just hang out and meet up. And that's what we call them meetups. We're going to meet up. And guess what? However, the meetup goes, it's going to go the way it needs to go. And I think that also brings down the resistance, because to Nieli's point, we have veterans who might be like, I'd love to go, but my anxiety. And Sinsu actually said this. So one of our advisors, he literally was like, I didn't know tacos was part of the conversation. Had I known tacos was part of the conversation, I would have gone. I'm like, we're marketing this thing completely wrong. So we need to make a whole point of saying, hey, the next meetup, it's, veterans and tacos being met up. And the next thing you know, we're going to have now 50 veterans show up and have to figure out, how do we do this?
Mhm.
You know, but again, I think that's what's really powerful. I know we have folks on TikTok and different places. If you guys have questions and gals have questions about V claims, feel free to start commenting those things, and we'll start also answering them as they kind of come up as well. Uh, but I think it's just good to be able to say that again. To me, this is one of the highlights. But really, it's the fact that we were able to come together, share these moments, and that's really what it comes down to. You know, anybody who knows me, you'll see on our website. You'll see. You know, I've said it many a times. I'm big on Maya Angelou's quote. You know, people are gonna forget what you said. They're gonna forget what you did, but they will not forget how you made them feel. And my whole thing has always been that. It's like, you know what? Forget the agenda. What did we do on Saturday? What did we do on Friday? It doesn't matter. What matters is that people felt heard, people felt appreciated, that people felt a part of something, and I think that's what's powerful about what we're doing. And it's great to be able to show this journey because no one shows that part, you know. And having Jerry with us, and having Dennis with us, and having Vernon with us, and having our council, you know, of our elders, like, no, we need that because there's lessons there. There's a lot of wisdom, you know, that Jerry has to impart one way or the other, and there's a whole lot of pork rinds that Legend has to go get from you. So there's that part. Um, Jerry, over to you on your side as we start looking at some questions. Uh, well, I think it's pretty much decided that, you know, we may have to, you know, kind of count the last few votes, but tacos is definitely on the equation. So there's that part.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Legend's definitely part of the mix as well. So get ready for that.
Yeah.
Location, TBD. But some of your thoughts as far as, you know, at least some of the things we've kind of covered as a whole.
Well, you're right. It's not about our differences. It's about our shared points. It's the things that we have in common, and it's I'm just thrilled to be a part of a group like this. It just warms my heart, and it means so much to me. Uh, there may be some folks that have dialed in tonight who wanted to get some encouragement about their claim, and I'll just give them some encouragement right now and say get the 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 crash course briefing and start there and get your claim going. Now back to Legend. I won't be giving Legend any uh, uh, pork rinds. I got training treats for him, buddy. I got training treats. I've been studying training a service dog for 2 years now, and I'd have a
Legend in
service
trouble.
dog, except my wife doesn't want a dog,
Mm-hmm.
and the organizations that would provide a dog to me won't give me one unless she's on board. Everybody in the house has got to be on board,
Yes.
and so I don't have a dog right now, and I've got PTSD issues, I got depression issues, I got mobility issues, I got dementia issues that all could be addressed by a service dog, but I can't get one. So I have to rely on folks like you, and it's working good. This is working. Okay, maybe I'll need a dog.
Hey, so like I said, we're
Well,
coming down, so that's
all
gonna
right.
happen one way or the other. So,
Well, I'll look forward to spending some time with Ledger too.
oh, trust me, he's gonna enjoy it. You know how well Nayeli knows and Reggie knows. You know, give him some treats, he's happy. But you start
Yeah.
rubbing that belly, it's a
Oh
wrap.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh
It's
yeah.
a wrap.
it's a wrap. He will literally sit
Hmm.
there until your hands go
All
numb.
right.
He's just like, hey, who told you to stop? Who told you to stop?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're tired? Well, let me go to the next one. Tuk, 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 tuk.
Yes.
Um, but to the claims part specifically, again, you know, one of the things we'd encourage folks is head over to our website at veteransnetwork.club. The link's in our bio, and that information is there. Obviously, we have a slew of amazing things that are coming. Our crash course, we have our master class, we have ebooks on the way. We have so many things that we're doing, and again, it's really about being able to meet veterans where they're at, because some folks maybe just need a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of information, and other folks may need a little more hand holding. And depending on where a veteran is at, we want to be able to meet that. So one of the other parts about the meetup is, you know, being able to look at strategically, right, how we begin to move forward, how we begin to create opportunities for our veterans beyond the claim. And that's the whole thing. We're not minimizing the claim aspect. It's almost saying that, hey, that's a given. We know how to solve that problem, align resources to a veteran, and once they win the
Yeah.
claim, then what? Because that's the whole thing. We don't want this to be transactional. It's literally,
Yeah.
okay, you won your claim. Now what do we do? Well, we got some
Right.
living to do. We got some
Right.
get-togethers to do. We have moments like this
Right.
to share about. And again, on Jerry's side, he's been with us for many years, and he's in the final throes of his claim being decided. But even after that happens, you're still part of the mix. We still have things to
Yeah.
do, and I think that's what's missing sometimes in its space, right? It becomes a quick, well, what do I do for my claim? Well, first of all, let's reset. Where are you, right? We have to look at this very strategically, and the way we approach claims is very strategically, right? Where is someone?
Yeah.
Um, what do they need? Align those resources, help them understand the process, because again, someone may be 90% there and they just need 10%, or someone may be 10% and need 90% of help. And we got some veterans who are
Right.
completely lost and they're like, I don't know jack diddly squat. But what I will say, and Nayeli, I'll kick it over to you, that I find interesting is where's and Jerry, this is something I think that you will appreciate, is we're seeing a lot of veterans now who are transitioning, who are not doing the
Mhm.
same thing older veterans used to do, i.e., get out and forget it, or I'll deal with it later. I think us communicating the shortcomings of the system has really made it to where a lot of veterans are leaving service now saying, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't want to wait 10, 20, 40, 50 years to file a claim. I want to make sure that as I'm
Right.
transitioning, that I'm educated, I'm making informed decisions, and it's not just the TAPS class, it's not just, the transitioning this or the this, that. No, I want to know what's happening. And I think that's something refreshing that we're getting more transitioning veterans asking questions to not have to repeat the same, errors that we've seen others. So Neely, on your
Right.
side, can you speak to some of that? Because I think that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I think that well, I feel like 50-50 about it. So I like the fact that, veterans or transitioning service members are a little bit more educated on their process and asking questions. Whereas even when I got out in '08 from active duty, it was like, give my duty to 14, I'm out. I don't want to claim a thing. I don't want to do a thing. And now, like, the conversation is, I know I deserve something because I didn't come in this way. I know I deserve something and I want to get it right the first time because I can't do X, Y, and Z, or I'm not going to be able to go back to a normal job. So I like that education process of it, that the service members are more educated on what they're entitled to, or could be entitled to based on their service and their disabilities. But there still is a lot of misinformation from the people they should be getting help from. It frustrates me to no end to still see veterans who come and say, I submitted 22 claims because that's what my VSO told me. And I take a look at it, and like, the VSO submitted a claim for poor sleep. Well, poor sleep is not a diagnosis. Poor sleep could be depression. Poor sleep can be insomnia. Poor sleep can be pain. There's so many reasons for it. So I think that there's still a lot of education gaps for service members, as far as, what can I claim, what is the criteria for certain things. So I think that, and again, to me, it's always like, yes, come here for the claims, but we're not telling you sign a contract. We're not telling you you have to work with us. We're not telling you I'm not giving you any information unless you work with us. It's more, educate yourself. We have a lot of free content. We have a lot of free classes where you can show up at no charge. Yeah, we have workshops. Yes, we have advisory, but the thing for me is education. Who's your best resource? It may be a VSO. You may not be a good fit for VNCC, but if you can take away enough information to go work on your claim on your own with the VSO, I'm all for it. If you need a lawyer, I'm all for it. If you want to do it alone, I'm all for it. We have tons of veterans who constantly DM and send messages and say, "Hey DP, thank you for your videos. It took me a year, but I did it for free watching your videos. Hey DP, I've been following you for years. I did it and now I'm helping my brother." I think we just got an email like last week that was exactly
Mm-hmm.
that. I've been watching your videos. I got myself to the rating that I needed, watching your free content. and now I'm helping my brother. And that's what it's all about. Education. Educate yourself to make sure that you're getting the right help. Again, just always seeing these messages is disheartening what unfortunately other people have done in our space. I talked to a veteran like 2 weeks ago. He paid $400 to be told of the possibilities. You can possibly get to 100% PNT. Well, where's the strategy? Paid $400, and that's what gives everybody else a bad rep.
Mhm.
Like anything, you have good people and you have bad people in every space. But that's the disheartening part that, sometimes a veteran just doesn't believe. Or, why should I pay you? I've been burned many times, or why should I work with you, or why should I trust you? And I think that's for me, the education part. I don't want you to sign a thing, do a thing, come work unless you're educated, because we don't file a claim for you. We don't do a thing for you. We educate you and walk with you through the process. You may not need us for every claim, may just need the education. Another veteran who worked with a lawyer, the lawyer submitted a 10%, he submitted an increase for tinnitus, which is 10%. You're never going to get more than 10%. So now he's stuck paying this lawyer X amount percentage because the lawyer wouldn't release him. I told him, I gave him a strategy. You don't even have to work with me. Here's the strategy. Here's what I think it's going to work for you. What he submitted for you is a no go. You're never going to get more than 10% for tinnitus. And sadly, the lawyer, wouldn't release him. Even if the lawyer released him, the lawyer was going to take back pay of that. It's disheartening to see still very much the lack of education of the actual process. Um, I do like the fans are getting out at least with enough knowledge to ask the questions, to look for help, and they have a good starting point knowledge of what are the possibilities for them. So they're asking the right questions. They're coming and asking the right questions. They're coming and staying. That's the thing, that they're coming and staying. We have a veteran who's like a year out, but he's come to quite a few Wednesday classes already. So I like that. They have enough information to keep looking for information and not go at it alone.
Hmm. I think that's the whole point. And some of the content that we're going to be putting out that you'll see here very soon is going to start centering around kind of what's happening. Hey, Lane, how's it going? One question came up. You got 100% PNT. Did it yourself. Originally denied in 2014 for the items. If you weren't pursuing the claim or continued to it, and you let a time lapse, no, it won't. It'll pick up from your new intent to file when you file the claim. It won't go back unless you continue to pursue it. So we have veterans, for example, who were denied in 2008. But they kept fighting the claim, appealing the claim, going through the process, and then once they win the claim, then it will backdate to the original time. So you have to actively keep pursuing a claim. Um, but some things that I would say for sure to keep an eye out on is, there's a lot of things happening right now in the government that I think veterans need to know about. Some initiatives, and you'll see us talk about this here very soon. But there are, budgetary, things being proposed that include things as much as taxing, veterans' disability pay, adding premiums, being able to cut certain things, cutting benefits past a certain age, finding ways to, cut down the deficit in some shape, fashion, or form. That again, it's like that debt wasn't created by the veterans. This is something that we were the minority that stood up to do a job, to do something. And the fact that, regardless of political affiliations, the ball was dropped in some shape, fashion, or form. And now the answer is, hey, let's go take it from vets. Let's go ahead and try to cut benefits that they've earned. Like this, these mandates, again, back to the VA, goes back beyond, these mess ups that have been happening, right? These, this overspend in certain things. So there's a lot of issues that are happening. And really for us, it's just saying veterans need to be aware of these things. Because again, regardless of political affiliation, that's not the point. But if something affects our space, we have to talk about it, right? There are positive things that are happening within the VA, and we highlight those things. But by the same token, there are things that are not working that need to be said. And if things are being proposed and things are happening that don't benefit our veterans, we need to know. Because the sad part is there's always a gap or a lack of communication to where I didn't know this was even a proposal. I didn't know they were trying to do this. I didn't know they were trying to cut benefits. I didn't know they were trying to tax, or propose taxing, disability, payments and stuff like that. So Those things are alarming, and I think awareness is a big part. But to Nayeli's point, what I think is great is the fact that we can at least have these conversations. And sometimes people come on our lives and they see what we're talking about, and it becomes a whole lot of finger pointing. But it's like that doesn't solve a problem. We know the system is broken. We know that things. It's not a one single point of failure. It's not a VSO's problem or a Raiders problem. It's a systematic problem that's happening where the system has failed. And like one solution that was given, when me and Nayeli went live a few weeks ago was, well, try to go and file your claim this way or go to this place. That doesn't solve the problem, because the problem is across the board, we need reform. We need things to be fixed to be able to process that. It shouldn't be, if me and Jerry want to win or have our things processed right, let's go to Nayeli, the RVSR, out of, Podunk, Idaho. No, it should be that across the board, they're all trained correctly to do their job right, that VSOs are able to reach out. And again, what we see and what we're doing is we're filling a gap. We didn't create the gap. We shouldn't be having these conversations. It should be simply that Jerry had an issue, filed a claim, got his claim, moved on. But the fact is that the solutions that are presented are not working. So when we step up, they're like, oh, well, you don't have to pay for this or take a class for that. Well, how has that worked out for you? How has all these free services been for you? Because the problem is there's a lack of education, there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of support, and when we have veterans that are reaching out to us and say, well, I was with a lawyer and they didn't get back to me when they didn't see a way forward to get paid. Or my VSO hasn't got back to me in 3 or 4 months because they're overworked or they quit. Or we have, lawyers that are filing for a veteran to get an increase on tinnitus, even though tinnitus doesn't go past 10. Like, you're just throwing things against the wall to see what sticks. Or instances where, again, the things that you see, it's like, are you kidding me? And the fact is, the system has to do better. And that's why I think awareness, communication comes into place, because Jerry could have done everything right, as did Reggie. But unbeknownst to you, the system failed. And we talk about the 68%, error rate in how they've requested medical opinions. Now we're talking about how things are not done right, and the solution is we'll do more training. Well, first of all, the training caused the error in the first place because it was inadequate. So adding more training to fix the lack of training doesn't really help the problem. So, again, these are things that are happening, and it's easy to say, well, just go to this person, he'll fix it. No. Because if 1 million veterans go to this VSO or 1 million veterans go to this RVSR, it's going to flood the system and break it again. Like, we need the entirety to work. I just do not need one Navy ship to be operational. I need the fleet to be operational. If the fleet isn't working and the Navy isn't able to do its business, it doesn't matter to me that Jerry's on the USS blank and is doing something great. Well, what does that have to do with the other 20 ships in region that we need to be able to hold down the front? You know what I'm saying? So, we have to look at this from the perspective of even from the military side of the house, right? We need all branches working in unison to accomplish a goal. I need naval power to do its thing. I need air power to do its thing. I need ground troops to do its thing. And collectively, we solve a problem. We conquer, we win, etc. Well, on this side, we need veterans to know what's happening, because the problem is the system is broken. And when someone's like, well, you can just Google something. Yeah, you can Google how to replace the piping in your house. That's not going to work. You can Google how to replace your engine in your car. That's not going to work. Experience is what you need. And for many of our veterans, they don't have time to keep trying to Google something because it becomes self-defeating. I looked up all these things. I saw all these videos. I got wrong information, and I got the same results, denied. Or I didn't get service connected. Or my grandpa passed, and my dad passed, and my uncle passed. And they all kept passing, waiting for something to fix. So the real problem is not sometimes organizations, it's the system. Like, if you're upset that, hey, why should I have to pay a lawyer or an accredited agent or show up to a class that, you guys are doing, well, blame the VA. The VA is the problem. They're the ones that have the issue in the first place. And that's just a fact. And it's not about, again, pointing fingers. It's about calling a spade, because if the problem didn't exist, solutions wouldn't have to be created. And what we're doing is creating solutions. We're coming on here. We're answering questions. We're bringing our backgrounds to be able to help, because guess what? Who else is showing up? And again, we have also, the last point there, and I'll kick it to you, Nayeli, is there's a disconnect between the fact that for many of us, We just have no trust in the system. And that's a big problem. Like a relationship. Once trust is gone, that relationship is doomed. If you have no trust in your partner and you don't believe anything coming out of their mouth because they've lied and they've cheated and they've not shown up and they've done all the things opposite of what they said they were going to do, it doesn't matter if they come now with a bouquet of flowers saying, hey, I'm sorry, take me back. No, I don't want to hear it. We're done. The system has failed so much where it's like some people don't want to hear it. It doesn't matter if the VA puts out a YouTube channel. It doesn't matter. I don't trust you. I don't believe you. You've broken trust. It doesn't matter if the VA sends a letter in the mail. It doesn't matter. It goes to the trash can. I don't want to hear what you got to say. There's a broken trust in the system. And that's fundamentally, if we look at problem solving, and Jerry can appreciate this, if we're going to re-engineer something, go to the root problem. And to a good degree, the root problem that's happening is a lack of trust. I don't trust the system because it's continuously failed me. And not just failed me, but it's failed my uncle who passed, my grandpa who passed, my brother. Like, there's so much stacked against the system that it's hard to just say, oh, we'll just go and they'll take care of you. Like they took care of my uncle, like they took care of so-and-so, like they took care of Jerry, like they took care of Dennis. No, thank you. I do not want that thing. And that's the root problem that we have. It is a lack of trust in the system that the system has to find a way to rebuild that. And there's ways, obviously, to begin to do that. But I think if we look at the fundamental issue, that's what's required. Because right now, I'll tell you what, if a VA representative wants to sit here officially and talk with us, I'm all open for it. Because at least we're showing up and talking. We're here doing something.
Up for people in the past, from Clubhouse, we've opened that invitation. Hey, come, like, we're not against anybody. Here the goal is to educate veterans. And then they disappeared on us, like they never showed up. The guy on Facebook or on Instagram who sent all those nasty messages, and I replied with facts, and he blocked us and deleted his account. So it's like we're not against anybody. But to that point, there's a question on TikTok, curious on what does a third party claim assistance company do that you can't do yourself? 100% honest, nothing. You can do it all yourself. You can do it all yourself. You can, there's veterans who do it themselves in a couple of months. There's veterans who've been doing it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and they can't figure it out. What we do, and I can only speak for VNCC, and how we do things differently, is we support you throughout the whole process. We don't say do this. We don't say this. We don't say show this. We educate you in the process to own your claims, to be able to talk about your symptoms. We just helped a veteran who went P&T, maybe 3 weeks ago, DP, Melissa. She said in her testimony, she said, I thought I knew it all. I've been working my claim for 11 years. I thought I knew it all until I didn't know what to do next. And, I found you guys, and, we helped her get to 100% P&T. So the answer, the honest answer is nothing. You can Google everything. Everything is on the internet. Everything is in the regulation. The regulation is on the internet. The M21 is on the internet. You can literally find everything. If you have the time to do it, if you know what you're doing, do it. And sometimes it's the expertise. People are like, well, why should I pay you for free information? You're not paying me for free information. You're paying me for my expertise, the time that I've taken to teach myself, the experience that I have, not just with one particular case. I don't just know specifically a regulation that applies to my case. I know regulation that has applied to many veterans. I know regulation that can help you in appeal, like Melissa, she like she said, the CMP part. You don't see a lot of things on the internet that tell you how to prepare for a CMP, that tell you how the VA is going to evaluate you. But you do find a lot of videos that tell you show up like you haven't showered in 10 days, show up like you haven't shaven in 10 days, show up smelling, show up disheveled. You do see a lot of those videos. So there's nothing that you can Google on your own. There's nothing that you can't figure out on your own. Because again, the regulation that governs the claims portion is public information. It's the time, it's the expertise, and it's the knowledge that we have across many scenarios, not just a specific scenario. The knowledge that we have on how to help you appeal a decision, what regulation works, and people who get hung up on regulation, there's 68% error rate, so they're not following regulation. So we know how to help you appeal a decision based on experience, based on regulation, and just based on practicality, because the VA does not follow their own regulation.
That
They
part.
don't. Their presidents isn't always applied. So yes, you can Google everything. Anything that a lawyer can do, you can do. Anything that a VSO can do, you can do. Anything that a third party agent can do, you can do. Anything that an accredited agent does, you can do. And not to, again, throw it to anybody, because we're all in this space. For one, I like to think that we're all in this space to try to help veterans, but the truth is there's not. I have this experience as a VSO. I was a VSO before, and people are like, well, VSOs do this for free. No, we don't. I got a paycheck. And where does my paycheck come? From your taxes. And so you're paying for this help one way or another. And why do you think we can't see you in an expeditious manner? Because we work off of numbers. The more veterans we see, the more money that's allocated to us from the government. So if I can see 20 veterans in 15 minutes, and I don't care what you're going in there for, I'm just gonna throw your claim against the wall and see what sticks. I want to see 20 veterans because those are my numbers. I have a quota to meet where I may not be able to spend an hour with a veteran. I may not be able to spend 30 minutes with a veteran. Again, from personal experience, I tried signing up for a webinar, and just to kind of, get a taste of what's going on, I had to sign an NDA. Why should I have to sign an NDA for information? And again, to each their own. Everybody does the business how they want. But those are just the things that I take a look at how we do things different at VNCC. We have raiders who show up and just say, look at your letter. Your letter should tell you why you got denied. The letters, for one, sometimes are copy and paste. We have seen them, where the decisions are talking about female body parts, but it's a male veteran. How? Tell me how. The answer needs to be more. Well, it goes more into detail. It's not just the cut and dry. Look
Mm-hmm.
at your letter. Your letter is going to tell you why. Because our veterans don't know how to read letters. Our veterans don't know the terminology. They don't know how to close those gaps. They don't know how to decipher the VA terminology. So we show up, we walk you through the process. We don't tell you to show up and say a thing or do a thing. Or sometimes we get messages that say, how much can I pay you for you to file a claim? Well, that's not how we work. You don't have to pay us anything to do a thing for you, because we're not going to do any of the present, prosecute, and prepare a claim for you. But we will have a conversation with you for free. We will invite you to our sessions for free. Send us a message. We'll answer the questions for free. And sometimes, people kind of get thrown off by the fact of, well, do I have to pay for a consult, or why do I have to sign up for a call? There's so much that I can tell you through a message without getting context to your particular situation. And if you want detailed information, if you want a strategy going forward, it does require a call. It may require 2 calls. It may require an advisor, because once I give you all the information, we've had a veteran who showed up and said, I just don't trust myself. Yes, I can Google the information. Yes, I can do a thing. I just don't trust myself in the process. So the option is yours. You can do everything on your own. We're just trying to make it a little easier here at VNCC, with equipped with the knowledge that maybe you only need us once. Maybe you only need to show up to a free class. Maybe you only need to pay for a webinar. Maybe you just need the course, but you have options. You're not stuck with signing an NDA. You're not stuck with giving up 30% to a lawyer or never hearing from a VSO. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a long-winded answer to nothing.
It's a good
You
answer.
can Google everything yourself.
Yeah, and it goes back to, there's another intangible part, because when we look at what we do, every Wednesday we teach a class, right, and we're adding more workshops. The last workshop that we did, we spent over 4.5 hours with everybody who was there, and as a workshop,
And I
people
only gave you 2 hours.
well, people got a little more than they bargained for,
We
you
only
know.
gave you 2 hours. Veterans walked away with 5 hours. And the feedback was it felt like therapy, because we teach you how to express yourself. And that to me was like the most amazing thing. Like, it felt like therapy. And I'm like, well, that's what we want. Like, we want you to feel like you got more than just the claims
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it, to help you, give you that momentum to keep going. So that's
Yep.
another thing where DP very much does things as he wants to, as he feels like it, as the moment is calling for, just like our meetups are never planned or we follow an agenda or with an intention. His workshops are the same. You know, like I said, I told him like we have 2 hours. I broke it down by topic for him and we spent 5 hours. But it was great. Veterans walked away with knowledge. Veterans walked away feeling knowledgeable about the process. Veterans took a lot away. You know, we had a veteran who was like, I had never even thought that my condition was causing additional issues. I just thought it was, you know, now limited range of motion to my neck
Hmm.
because of a surgery. So if it takes 5 hours and DP wants to do it, 5 hours it is. Who cares what we say? It's 5 hours because he's all about educating veterans.
And no one and people stood there, for that time. But the biggest thing is, does Mike Tyson need a corner? Ring people, right? Do professional athletes need coaches and encouragement? The fact is, the system is so jaded and broken that sometimes you need someone to support you, because most veterans get denied and say, you know what, I tried, I'm done. That's like, what
Yeah.
makes you think that it's over? I've heard no fat lady sing. I ain't heard no bell. Just because you got denied doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? The
Yep.
fight continues. And sometimes you need that because, again, any sport event, if a boxer literally goes to the corner, nobody's there to literally, water him down and say, hey, you know, pick up your arms, get back in there, we wouldn't see sports at the level it is now. And again, this
Hmm.
person is a professional athlete. And I'm not saying that that's the situation with the VA, but sadly, that's what it is. You need sometimes someone to encourage you. And that's why we make these videos. You look at my page on TikTok, you'll see some of the videos that I make on purpose to kind of, poke people to do something. And it's like, you know what? I needed this. Or I needed, someone to kind of push me. That's the whole point, because folks are not doing that. You're not going to sometimes find motivation to take care of what you need to get taken care of. But the point is, we're going to show up, because ultimately, here's the secret. It's, I want to be for someone else what someone was not for me. The end.
Hmm.
That's it. So when someone looks at, oh, why did you spend 5 hours? Because I wish somebody would have done that for me. I wish somebody would have shown up. I wish somebody would have broken it down. I wish somebody
Yep.
would have said, you're not ready to file a claim yet because you don't even know what you're dealing with. Because if you don't know what you don't know, how can you even get to a place of asking for help? We have to rewind things. As veterans, we're indoctrinated with a few things, and we talk about this in our classes. We camouflage. So first of all, let's just start with that. We camouflage both psychologically and emotionally, which means you don't even know what you're dealing with. We've normalized things because I'm the problem. I have this. I have that. I don't deserve. I this, that, the third. And then the fact that we're trained to suck it up and drive on, drink water, change your socks, take a Motrin. We've always been indoctrinated with this mentality that helped us to get through service and combat, but it doesn't help when reality kicks in. When you redeploy back home and you hang up the uniform, you have to ask for help. But we have veterans who have literally left and they have never asked for help. They've never said, hey, I'm in a situation. And being able to, for example, have Jerry say, hey, it's been a month since I've had the call. That's a win. But to get to a place to even say that, that's, people don't do that. People don't get to a place of saying, hey, I'm not in a good place, because we don't want to talk about that. I'll show you my scars from jumping out of an aircraft and, all the cool injuries, but I won't talk about anxiety or depression or ideations of checking out or traumas that we've had sexually. Those things, we just bury them away, you know? So being able to have these conversations and create a space for people to feel comfortable doing that, I think it's huge. So I'm going to kick it over to Jerry to add to that too. One quick answer to Lane. The Nexus class, we're just finalizing the material for it, and then we'll post it on our class. So the date's not up yet. We did our crash course, and again, kind of just taking some feedback to revamp it and kind of make it a little bit better going forward. But again, it's offering solutions. So I double down and concur with Nieli as far as third party. And again, I wouldn't even put us like third party claim assistance. It's not really claim assistance. I'm trying to get your mind right to understand how to even approach this, because submitting a claim is easy. You go online, you literally go open an account, you hit submit, and you show up. That's it. But do you know how to do something? Do you know how to throw a jab? Do you know how to actually use the resources? Because a buddy letter is a tool. Your personal statement is a tool. Your doctor letter is a tool. All of that stuff is tools. If you do not know how to use these tools, guess what? It's like giving a novice E1 who just enlisted an M16 and saying, go out and do something. you're not going to hit anything. You don't know how to use any of the resources available to you. And sadly, that is because of the way the system is set up. We didn't create the problem, but that's the way it is, because you're going to get denied, because you're missing continuity of care, because you're missing a diagnosis, because you're missing certain key things that are required for service connection, because no one's educating you on what is service connection. You don't even know about mental health conditions. You don't even know the things to file for. You're filing for a knee condition and a back condition and a foot condition, and they're all worth 10%. But you're not talking about GERD or IBS or migraines or chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia, or the fact that that assault that happened in service is a mental health condition and it's not something to be scared about, because we deal with PTSD, we deal with anxiety, we deal with depression, right? So there's so much there where, again, it's so much more than just, hey, what do I say? To Nelly's point, oh, show up disheveled. How about we get down to the fact of why are you disheveled? Why don't you care anymore? Why have you let yourself go? Why is your personal hygiene neglected? That's where we have to go. Not just don't shower. That doesn't mean anything. That's not talking about anything, you know? So the next class is coming. That's something to keep an eye out for, and some of the other things that we're doing. But those are all the things that came out from our meetup that we're looking forward to do. Jerry, on your side, I think you had raised your hand, had something. So let me kick it over to you, my brother.
Okay. There's several things that I realized as you guys were talking that don't come out clearly in a lot of the education, the things that the experience can provide to you. Things like secondary conditions. They're not obvious. I put in my second claim that I put in. I put in a whole bunch of I put in 6 different conditions, not realizing that some of these were secondary to the ones that I'd put in the first time that got service connected. Well, all of my second claim got denied because I didn't realize they were secondary, and because I didn't develop a strategy. I didn't get a coach to help me. I thought, well, I did it the first time, I can do it the second time. Well, it wasn't that easy. And when you go the first one, you might be able to mutter through, and if you don't go for too much gusto in the first claim, you might make it through. Tinnitus would be an easy one to get through, and get service connected and get something out there. But you gotta to know what to do the next time. And when my first claim was actually denied, uh, I didn't know what to do then. And Brian said, do an HLR, a higher level review. And I said, really? That's just tell them to send it upstairs and have somebody at a higher level review it? Yeah, that's all it takes. And so they did, and they got it, and it was approved, and it was service connected, and I got the whole Megillah. And I was really shocked. So there's some experiential stuff that you can't Google. There's some techniques about what to do next that you can't Google. Google won't help you develop a strategy, and I think the strategy is vital.
To Jerry's point, I just saw a comment on TikTok. I filed, they didn't use my evidence of my claim. The VA doesn't have to recognize your nexus letter. Partly incorrect, partly, I wouldn't say incorrect, but the VA does have to recognize your evidence. If you submit a letter and it's not part of the evidence listed, you can appeal. That's where the knowledge and expertise and experience comes in. You can appeal it for a number of reasons, again, depending on why they deny it. But they do have to recognize every piece of evidence that you submit. That's why when you look at your denial letter, it gives you an evidence section, because they have to evaluate everything that you submit as part of the evidence. They don't have to take it, they don't have to use it, they don't have to rate you based on it, but they do have to evaluate all the evidence presented. As far as they don't have to recognize your next letter, again, that's subjective. If you submit a nexus letter that is, let's say, for example, from your treating physician, they know you, they've been dealing with you, they know your conditions, but they take their VA's opinion, who's not your treating physician, who saw you for 15 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. There's a thing called probative value. And then there's a regulation called reasonable doubt, that you can use that to your advantage if you know how to apply it. Write a statement and submit it to HLR because they do have to evaluate the evidence. Again, what he's pulling, the higher of two evaluations goes back to the reasonable doubt. So they do have to evaluate. They have to recognize what you submit. What you submit gives you a fighting leg and a standing leg against the VA to appeal their decision based on an inadequate or an insufficient exam. Um, so that's another part, that, again, you have
And,
ways.
and this is the CFR now, which again,
Mhm.
let's put things in perspective. So when we're looking at this, because the question does come up, right? We're looking at the Federal Code of Regulation. We're specifically looking at the law. Now, M21-1 is internal VA documentation. That does not trump law. So let's put things in perspective from hierarchy perspectives, right? So the fact is, evidence has to be evaluated. Does the system always do it? Well, come on now. That's the reason why we have laws in first place put together. People who violate laws, they don't follow the rule of what they should do. But the fact is, if evidence that's submitted to a claim has to be evaluated. Whether or not they didn't evaluate it to that same point is a valid point. But think about that, right? Jerry just said this. Experience and Google will not tell you that just because they did not factor this evidence, that's wrong. You have to appeal. You can push back. Because again, the mentality is, well, they're not going to accept a Nexus letter, so I'm done. Says who? Google didn't tell you to push back. Google didn't tell you that's wrong. Google's not telling you, hey, they have to evaluate evidence, because if you look at this part here, it's simply put, every element in any way affecting the probative value to be assigned to the evidence in each individual claim must be thoroughly and consciously studied by each member of the rating board in light of established policies of the VA. So they have to factor it in. So when the question comes in, they don't have to. That's the law. They have to. They have to look at it. And then veterans, for example, who want to look up the CFR, because again, you can Google it all. But do you know that the higher two evaluation said, well, the county VSO doesn't trump the law? Again, I'm happy that the county VSO says something, but who's higher here? The county VSO who didn't get trained properly, probably, or is just going off of a few things he saw or she saw, or the law? This is CFR. Higher to evaluation. You have veterans who literally are going to talk themselves out of a claim because they think to themselves, you know what, I don't have all these symptoms, Jerry, so I'm not going to talk about, symptoms at the 50 or the 70. And the reality is, look what it says here. Where there's a question of two evaluations to be applied, the higher evaluation will be assigned if the disability picture more nearly approximates the criteria. AKA, who told you to not talk about things? Because sometimes we'll look up, symptoms and things in the rating criteria and say, well, I don't have all that, so I'm only going to talk about this. Wrong. Because again, you could have all the symptoms, let's say for mental health at the 50, but you may have some symptoms at the 70, or all at the 30 and some at the 50, but you make a point to not talk about your more severe issues and you don't know because someone told you a thing. I'm not telling you, I'm showing it to you. That's a difference. So experience
And I
says, if we're going to look at something, and again, Jerry has an engineering background. Don't just give me something that you think. Show me the facts. Show me your sources. If we're going to talk about solving a problem, then let's go to the root. Because the fact is, we can pull up the M21-1, and I'll show you there where it says they have to evaluate this. Whether or not it happened or not, it's irrelevant to me. Because when it comes down to it, if they have not done what they're supposed to do, i.e. evaluating evidence, it is evidence that has to be factored in. Now, how that evidence is factored in is some of the things we're going to talk about in our Nexus and personal statement writing class of how are you writing your statements? How are these, your doctor wants to support you and help you, but you don't even know what's required to help yourself. So that's a whole nother problem. Your doctor wants to help you, but you don't even know what you need. So it's like the blind leading the blind. And when the inability for a doctor to understand, hey, if you're going to write a letter for Jerry, make sure certain key elements are in there to be able to make a solid argument, because again, it has to be evaluated. So I'm sharing this because again, it's not, oh, DP or VNCC, told me something. No, I showed it to you. It's there. And I think that's what has to happen in our space. We have to come to a place of being able to reference something. Because again, if you know something, for example, here's one. So I'm back into CFR, and I'm showing you the disability rating. So this is not, oh, DP told us a thing, right? So I'm pulling this up, and I want to go down just for argument's sake, because it makes it's easier to show mental health. Here are all the conditions for mental health. Because again, someone say, well, I can't, I don't want to file for PTSD. Well, look at all these conditions here that are not PTSD. So that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just PTSD for mental health. But when it comes to symptoms, for example, you have some veterans who will talk about, like I said earlier, things at the 30, but they won't speak about things at the 50 bracket. And you may have a few things there. And nowhere on the rating criteria that it says, say you have to have everything. Because if you look at it, look at what it says here. It says symptoms such as. Every bracket says that. It doesn't say all symptoms, And I'm not a math, English, scientist. But this little thing right here, Nayeli, and company, it means and or. It doesn't mean and. This is and or. So you can have this symptom and or the next one. And not even understanding the fact that some people think, well, I'm not going to talk about this, Jerry, because I don't have all these symptoms. Where does it say you have to have all these symptoms? It literally is about you talking to your truth, because you have some veterans that, quite frankly, may be at a 50, have some symptoms at the 70, and they may be able to say, you know what, I can talk about at the 100 range, these symptoms. Maybe not everything else, but this is where I'm at. And being able to talk about that and say, hey, this is what we always tell our veterans. You as a veteran watching this, wherever you may be, here's the hack. Be a veteran. Stop trying to be a raider. Stop trying to be a doctor. A veteran needs to be a veteran in this conversation. A raider needs to be a raider. And an examiner needs to examine. My VSO told me to do something. I just debunked it. Next question. And it's not about pointing a finger. It's just saying that this is the problem that people don't know, because if you do not know the law and you can't reference it, every time we talk about these things, we'll pull it up. Because it'll never be some guy on TikTok told me a thing. Look at our videos. We show you stats. We show you the facts, because that's how we solve problems. To empower a veteran to understand, wait a second, even if they denied you, again, Jerry is here with us tonight on this show. If tomorrow, God forbid, someone says, so it's Jerry, Reggie, and Nayeli, myself. Tomorrow, the cops come knocking on Reggie's door and say, Reggie, there's a complaint that says that you were at the store and you shot somebody. Okay, that doesn't mean it's true. The fact is, he was here. We have proof to do that. And I'm saying that as an example from the legal perspective, where you could be charged with something. It doesn't mean that it's correct. You can be denied, and it doesn't mean that it was a correct denial. So the point is that the system fails beyond the veteran space. People get charged for erroneous and bogus things all the time, and you have to legally fight it back, and there's recourses to be able to defend yourself. So when it comes to a veteran, who told you have to settle for something? Because here's my last point. Jerry shared he has a medical condition. I promise you, Jerry had a second opinion and probably a third opinion. No one just gets one opinion and says, you know what, Jerry, the doctor said I have colon cancer, so I'm checking out. Well, did you get a second opinion? That's the first thing you're going to say. Like, make sure you get another opinion, because you know how it goes sometimes. So my VSO told me that doesn't work. Did you get a second opinion? Because in everything else, we get second opinions. But when it comes to this veteran space, it's whatever they tell us is golden rule. But I promise you, if you got a cancer scare, you get a second opinion, a third opinion, and go see a shaman for a spiritual opinion. When it comes to the VA claim space, we just go with whatever they're telling us. So again, not poo-pooing, on anyone, but putting perspective that, hey, there's more to this. But Google is not going to give you this. That's what expertise gives us. Expertise gives us the ability to be able to answer this question, because you don't see us here going, hold on, what was that question, Nayeli? Let me. No, experience knows how to do a thing. Because guess what?
Yeah.
All our grandmas who knew how to cook in the kitchen, they had no cookbook. They knew how to cook. We know how to do this because experience and time. Over to you, Nayeli.
So Don, I hope that you're still in a time frame to be able to take those regulations that we showed and apply them to your case. And if you're in the time frame to fight back, and or if you're past the time frame, you still have options. Why was it denied? And that's another thing that we help to do is take a look at your evidence. Why was it denied? What are the gaps? Why are they telling you no when you have a nexus letter, and how can we fight back? So I hope that you're in the time frame to review yours, and fight back, look at the regulations that were shown, and understand why it got denied, if they didn't review your evidence, that's a problem. They have to acknowledge all evidence. So I hope that you're still in a time frame, or at least still fight back, even if you lose your effective date. Don't let go of something that you had a possibility. Obviously you believe in your claim for a reason and you submit it. So don't let it go. Now that you know that it's not the case, that you can fight back. Fight for your claim.
Hmm. Reggie, on your side, we got one of your partners here in the building. We got Willie Askew, Army veteran, 6971, saying what's up to him. Jerry, back to you.
Oh, uh, I want to just reaffirm what Naeli said, and that what she said. You can't Google and find out. And that's just another instance of where the experience counts. But we've been saying a lot of things about the VA, and we've been talking a lot about some of the bad things. I just wanted to throw a good thing out there.
Hmm.
When I turned in my third claim, I turned in the third claim for TDIU. That's all. Just that I'm unable to work. Okay, I can't work, so I can't work. So I was going for the 100%. Well, they came back with a TDIU plus an increase in my PTSD rating. I didn't ask them for that. They just did that, and I said, "Well, there's only one way to go. I'm at the top of the PSD rating, except for 100%. So if they're going to increase it, it's going to 100%." So I was really appreciative about the interview, the intake process that recognized that I had other evidence there. And and again, there's another thing that you won't find out on Google is they may find things in your evidence that you didn't know about, you didn't see.
Hmm. And Lane had a good point. And again, this is, Amy's not here, so we can talk about it, sleep apnea, real quick. But it's also
Yeah.
simple things that people don't realize. So this is the rating criteria for sleep apnea. And there's one aspect that folks sometimes I don't think are realizing. You can have mild, moderate or severe, sleep apnea, whether it's obstructive, whether it's central, whether it's mixed. First of all, let's just pause right there. Folks don't even realize that there's actually three different types of sleep apneas. There's obstructive sleep apnea, there's central sleep apnea, there's mixed sleep apnea. So let's just take that. Because people think sleep apnea, they think you're overweight. First of all, we got people with sleep apnea who are literally, a bag of bones. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Nayeli's husband, for example, being one of them. He's
Yeah.
not overweight, yet he has sleep apnea. So it's
Super
not obstructive.
active.
You know what I mean? So,
Clean diet, super active,
and has sleep
work
apnea.
out religiously, and he has sleep apnea. And his doctor just called him last week and said, "Hey, we're reading your information. You're having X amount of apneas per minute. Like, get on your machine." And
Hmm.
he's tiny, and he has a really clean diet. And but you know,
We're gonna send him some cookies. But the highlighted word here, though, is one part that many veterans mix. We're talking Nexus letters. We're talking all this. Okay, check, 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 check. But is it medically required? That literally is the linchpin for many veterans who don't even realize that. You can pull all the letters and Nexus letters you have, and if the fact that it's not medically required, let's just start there. That's the very first things. Required use for a breathing assistance, such as continuous airway pressure machine, CPAP. Well, you're not going to even come close no matter how many bud letters you get if it's not medically required. You have instances where someone, they're issued something because they have mild sleep apnea, but is it required? No, but they're issued. And even then, that right there trumps something because now I'm going to my doctor, I'm writing a letter, and they're saying, yeah, DP has sleep apnea. So he was prescribed, we gave him a CPAP machine and hopefully it helps. Okay, but rewind. Let's go back to the basics. Is it even required medically? Because that's also something that if you don't understand, how they're rating certain things, that's one part. And then two, look at the sleep apnea rating criteria. There's zero for some veterans. And here's the fact. Sometimes you may get a zero, and that's okay. Because it may be that you're asymptomatic, with documented sleep disturbing breathing, but you're not really that severe. And here's the reason I'm saying this. Knock on wood, you may just be a 27-year-old person leaving service who has this on their records and you have it at a zero. But you won't be 27 forever. At 47, things get worse. At 67, things may get worse. And over time, it's a different conversation. Say, hey, I was asymptomatic before, but now I have persistent daytime hypersomnolence. I'm falling asleep at the car. No matter what I'm doing, things are getting worse. To Jerry's point, my mental health is getting worse. Things do get worse. That's a different conversation as things, begin to progress. So understanding some veterans, maybe at 30, they have persistent daytime hypersomnolence. But someone's going to tell you for sleep apnea, it's just a 50. Well, did you know that you can also be rated at 30 because it's not required that you need a CPAP, but it is now documented that you indeed have, persistent daytime hypersomnolence and it's able to be connected back to service. So my whole point is like these are things that aren't even looked at because everybody just says, "Oh, have the VA give you a CPAP or your doctor give you a CPAP. Go, pay someone to do a nexus letter and file the claim." Well, do you even understand how this whole conversation started? And the reason this is one of the most highly denied claims is because just because you're issued a CPAP doesn't mean you're going to get awarded a claim. We talked about this a few times when we do our classes, but here's the best way to look at this. The biggest issues that veterans have when we're talking claims is they don't understand that VA claims, the Veterans Administration, the biggest problem is the name. If I tell Jerry, hey, I got, Medicare, okay, good, I have healthcare. But that doesn't mean I'm going to get Social Security, disability. Like in our world, we understand that Medicare is not synonymous with Social Security, disability. There are two different things. Within the VA, the same thing is happening. There's VHA, BVA. Healthcare and benefits are two different things. So just because the VA gave you a CPAP, it doesn't mean you're getting a disability. It's healthcare. Again, Medicare could give you a CPAP. Doesn't mean that Social Security disability is going to pay you for that CPAP that you have. How is that related to workman's comp or a disability that they should pay you for? So when it comes to the VA, same thing. Jerry got a CPAP? Okay, good. What does that have to do with service? Because if you're having a disability conversation, that's a whole different thing on top of a medical condition. So sometimes we have to break it down that healthcare and disability within the VA are two completely different things. But we assume they gave me meds for PTSD, Nayeli, so why aren't they rating me? They gave me, an asthma pump. Why aren't they rating my asthma? They gave me all these meds. Because that's healthcare. It's a whole different conversation. Nayeli, your thoughts?
Agreed. Just understanding what you're doing, which goes back into another question on TikTok, and we get it all the time. I'm at 60%. How can you get me to 100? I'm at 90%. How can you get me to 100? Well, one, does the regulation allow for you to get to 100? Do your conditions allow for you to get to 100? So it's never a conversation of how can you get me to 100. It's always a conversation of what do you have that could possibly get you to 100. What are your ailments that aren't documented? And what is documented? What are you service connected for? How can we link it so that you can understand how to even go about it? Because if you're asking us how we can do it, we're not the VA, we're not Raiders. We can't get you to a point if you don't have what it takes to get to a certain point. So even understanding what qualifies for it, not what, don't just take somebody's word, because again, you will see that out there all the time. Well, my friend told me to do this because it worked for him. Guess what? Your friend's not disclosing everything with you. I've been working with DP for 3 years. DP doesn't know what I'm rated for. He knows that I'm 100%, but he doesn't know what I'm rated for. So it's like you don't ever know. People don't disclose everything with you. So just because it worked for your friend doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because you don't know what path your friend took. You don't know their medical history. You don't know the medical evidence that was required for them to get that way.
And you said that too earlier, which I want to just pause real quick, where this is not just, oh, DP got himself to a place, or I helped Jerry get to a place. Like, no, this is literally years of experience working with various different veterans. We literally just talked to a veteran a few weeks ago who was 95 years old, a World War II veteran. So when someone says, well, just check yourself into AA to get PTSD, that doesn't work that way. Those are little cookie cutter options that, again, because it worked for you, it doesn't set a precedence. So it's almost like saying, if you're really a tactician and you understand strategy, it's not just, well, this is how I won the fight. No, that was a lucky punch. For all intents and purposes, the person giving you advice could have completely lucked out. They fell on the right desk with the right rater and got rated, but they couldn't tell you how to do it again. Because when you did exactly what they said, guess what?
It didn't
denied.
work for you.
It didn't
Mhm.
work, And again,
Yep.
like here's back to the CFR. Here's a little nugget for you. When we tell veterans, for example, that they shouldn't just go off of what they're told, there's a reason that these things have to be known. How are we measuring these things? You went to a CMP and the examiner didn't pull out a goniometer and measure you correctly. Well, do you see the difference there between a 0 and a 30 and a 15? All those degrees count for something. And not knowing that the difference between flexion of 45 to 30 to 20 to 10 makes a difference of 10, 20, 30, 40, that's a big difference. But in the Ellie, I filed a claim, and I was able to show that I couldn't do certain things. Was that properly, measured? Well, the doctor said he's been doing it for 30, 40 years, and he can eyeball my range of motion. I'm sorry, but I don't want you to eyeball anything, because the difference, again, between 45, a 30, a 20, and a 10 means a big difference rating-wise. And this is back to the CFR. But people don't know these things because, do you understand there's different ways to rate something? The fact that you can have multiple ratings on one body part, that you can have literally multiple ratings on one knee, because the fact is there's extension, there's flexion, there's instability, there's other things but just pain. Understanding how this is, rated. Reggie and I talked the other day. He has multiple ratings on his hips. Like, people don't look at the fact that, like, there's different ways that things are rated. And when you start to look at this, how is it not just, oh, my knee hurts? Are we talking about, bigger pieces of things? Some folks, oh, the back won't go. Well, my friend told me, Neely, the spine won't go past 10. Really? Because I'm looking at a rating criteria that shows me 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100. Because there are veterans who have completely unfavorable ankylosing of the entire spine at 100. Some veterans literally have the entire thumbo, spine that's pretty much locked up a certain way. They're 50. So my whole point is, like, this whole concept of somebody told me something. I'm sorry, but the back goes more than 10. Just because you're stuck at 10 doesn't mean that the rating criteria stops where you stopped. Nelly, anything on that side? Just because I thought it was cool to bring that up.
For what?
Anything to add to that? So I thought it was kind of cool to bring up the back.
No, I mean it's right on point. There's so much that is not shared just because we don't walk around talking about our all limitations and disabilities. It's nice to say I did it on my own and 100%, but what did it take you to get there? Understand what applies to you. So, I'm at 90. How can I get to 100? Well, what do you have? What do you have that's rated? What do you have that's not rated? What are your symptoms? What are your diagnoses? Can you tie them together? How do they tie in together? And just understanding everything and how all of that links back to the CFR and where you fall under, back to the CFR. A lot of people say, well, just show up and say that you can't put your socks on. You don't see anywhere on there where it says they measure you not being able to put your socks on. You see degrees of limitation. So we can't tell you how to do that. We can't tell you this is 90, this is 45. We can't tell you any of that. We can't tell you to fake any of that, because how do you fake that? Another thing is, a lot of these exams, when you go to these CP exams, you're evaluated from the minute that you walk in. So either you have it or you don't. I have seen evaluations whenever I worked at a VSO and I had full disclosure to everything, where the examiner said the veteran was faking his range of motion. He walked in here with perfect gait, and when it came to evaluation, they didn't want to move past a certain point, and that's not possible if they walked in here with perfect gait. So no matter one, I would never tell you to lie about a certain condition. That's not who I am. I always say I'm too pretty to go to jail, so I'm not going to jail behind nobody.
No,
But
not happening.
we can't tell you to fake range of motion. We can't tell you to fake the way you feel. So understanding the regulation and how it applies to you is the only way to go.
Wait a second. I think I found Reggie's problem. Reggie got a case of the weak foot. Hey, did you know you can file for weak foot?
Reggie.
The claw foot. You know what I mean?
Lord.
50.
But again,
Look,
you know what I mean?
look.
You got people with the like. Oh, I heard someone said they got their feet to 50. Impossible. No, it's actually a thing. Like,
But I
flat
think-
feet, plantar fasciitis. Like, understanding there's a difference between plantar fasciitis 5269 and flat foot 5276. Two different conditions of the foot. But yet we only think, oh, I'm going to file for a plantar fascia. Oh, well, that's one thing, but you're not even addressing what
Yeah.
it is. And the fact is, in this game, sadly, you're going to be evaluated for what you asked for. You walk around with clawfoot and wigfoot, and you ain't calling a spade a spade. You got to be able to call these things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I've seen Reggie's foot. You know what I mean? He needs to have a conversation about the clawfoot.
Oh boy, but I have to say that on the note, when you go to those musculoskeletal exams, those CNP examiners not only test a range of motions, but a lot of them are also trained on BS detector range of motions, and they can tell. And there's certain ones out there. So you thinking you trying to skid the system, you can get caught.
Don't do it. And
Don't
and,
do
and that's
it.
what we talk about, right? Your truth is enough. Your
Right.
truth is enough. Like Jerry right now, if I were to say, and again, we've been talking about this, but if you say, for example, hey Jerry, what are some of the things that right now are really affecting you? You're not gonna have to sit there and be like, well, let me think about. No, we're not talking about bunions and ingrown toenails. We're talking about what's affecting you right now. If you're someone dealing with migraines, debilitating migraines, or PTSD to where you're not able to leave the house, or your back condition, or what have you, well, guess what? You know what I'm saying? That's the conversation, not just, well, let's see what we can data mine and figure out what's in your service records. No, there's instances where we have to look at that, but just because you went to sick call in 87 because your toe hurt, I'm telling you right now, you're not going to make much of a difference in the grand scheme of things when your toe's just fine now. So it's not just I went to go get seen one time. We're talking about disability. What is impairing to you today? What is a disability to you today? Not just I complained about a thing one time and I've never had issues. Because guess what? To Jerry's point, to Reggie's point, and to Nayeli's point and my point, there are things that I've been seen and cared for way before I ever filed a claim. The fact is, if you literally are dealing with a medical condition, claim or no claim, I got to go see the doctor. Ain't no ifs, ands, or but about it. I'm under care. I'm under therapy. I'm seeing someone, you know. Two questions came up. Lucas, I've been in the Army for 16 years. What should I be doing for my benefits? The biggest thing, Lucas, honestly, in your point, especially as you start to get to the sunset, is start to get things documented. That by far is the biggest issue that veterans have, transitioning, service members. You just don't get seen. You take care of everybody except yourself. You send everybody to go get things documented except yourself. Go get seen. Go to the doctor. Begin to take self-inventory. What are the things you're dealing with? The problem we have as veterans is we normalize things because it's cool to say, "Hey, Jerry, I literally crap my pants, or I have to go to the bathroom every 2 hours." Well, first of all, that's not normal. Let's just get that straight. But we make a point of like, well, all those MREs, right, Jerry? Ha 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 ha. No, that's IBS. Let's let's stop normalizing things that don't make sense. So to your point, Lucas, I would say the first thing is start taking inventory of the things that you're dealing with. But I would look at it from the inside out. As veterans and as service members, we go backwards. The physical stuff, I'll show you as I'm showing it to you. They're very low rated. Okay, the foot condition, this, that, the third, but when you start to look at the internal things that affect everything, because again, you can live a productive life having some weak foot, aka Reggie, but what about if you have chronic fatigue syndrome? What if you have fibromyalgia? What if you have migraines? What if you have GERD? What if you have IBS? Those things are limiting to you, and we don't think about that because we just brush it away. So a lot of the internal things that we don't get seen for become things that are higher rated because they affect other aspects of what we're dealing with. So I would say taking inventory, getting things documented, going to get seen. Again, on the extreme side, I don't care if it's the smallest thing, go get seen. Because when I was a first responder in service at, let's say, 9/11, September 11, I was young and I didn't think much of it. Fast forward all these years, my lungs are shot. But at the moment, Jerry, I was fine because, young whippersnappers, all this stuff. But over time, all that built up. Vietnam era veterans didn't just develop diabetes, didn't just develop
Right.
Parkinson's. Like over time, the exposure to things caused the things that we know today. But I promise you, a lot of people leaving service, a great majority thought, oh, that's nothing. It'll be fine. Ringing in the ear. Oh, that'll be fine. 40 years later, your ears have not stopped ringing, right? So that's what I would say, Lucas. Tuning into these conversations, normalizing these talks, I think is huge. Lane, same thing on my side. I'm waiting for the recall on my Philips device as well. So there's that part. It's a whole hold up. Broderick, what about X-rays? Again, it's adding to the conversation as far as what exactly is the X-ray showing, right? So we're showing a deformity or injury that creates, part of the conversation. So, for example, like I was in service doing land nav, and we were out there. It's one of those PLDC leadership course type of things. I fall down and literally fractured my coccyx bone. Like I literally damn near shattered it. Like it was just one of those things where if you know what a coccyx bone is and you ever heard it, trust me, I had to sit on a donut for a long time. Not fun at all. But those things were documented. And fast forward now, issues and things, because there's other things to look at. Does the coccyx bone get injured or fractured and in turn cause an issue to the prostate? Like, Like that's how people don't know how to look at stuff. So sometimes something can be small, but unbeknownst to you, like, well, how come I have a prostate condition? I'm like, well, do you realize the injuries that actually, may have given way to something? So the point is, there's different ways to look at stuff. So X-rays add to the conversation, but really it's saying, okay, what happened first of all, right? Because the X-ray is showing that there may be something that's, let's say, not the way it should be, but it's one part of the conversation, not just the X-ray, but now what are you dealing with, right? And that kind of goes into Jeff's question, what happens when you have surgery? Well, here's the reality. Sometimes surgeries makes things better, and that's a case where things are better. Conversely, there are times when surgery stops something from getting worse. It doesn't mean it got any better either. And sometimes surgeries don't go according to plan. So really, there's almost 3 different ways surgeries go, right? I have an issue with my shoulder that's service connected. They have to do surgery because if not, I will lose mobility. At best, I regain mobility. At medium, I don't deteriorate from where I'm at. At worst, it does nothing to improve the situation. So when it comes to surgery, really, which of those 3 goes? Because here's the fact, it may fix it now, but, come on now. Anybody who's had surgery knows 3 years down the road, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second, there goes the shoulder again. Another hip replacement, another this, another that. So there's different ways to look at it to where, that may be something to look at. So, Jeff, on your point, I had a total hip replacement. Again, did it improve it? I'm saying what's kind of happening behind that? Nayeli, anything on your side to add to that?
So yeah, to the surgery question, what about the surgery? Like, was it service connected before surgery? What happened there? And then did it work? If it worked, you may not have an impairment or a disability, but you could probably be rated for the scars. It just depends on what's going on. But I wanted to say hi to Larry. Larry, if you're still on, happy to see your name pop up, Larry. Here's one of my veterans I've been working with for a while. We didn't leave him alone. We haven't left him alone, and we keep retrying. He's one of the veterans who I personally believe the VA keeps getting it wrong based on evidence, based on arguments, because he has the conditions, because he has the secondaries. But we keep fighting. I never have told him, hey, Larry, we're done. I've never told him, hey, go find somebody else or do it on your own. We help you win one. You're on your own for the rest. So we keep fighting. We help him. We keep fighting. I'm happy to see you pop up, Larry.
Annette Copeland. Whoop whoop.
Annette. It was secondary for the surgery. So again, so if you want to, if the surgery was secondary to a service connected condition, what were the residuals of the surgery? If it was successful, again, if it was successful, you have no issues. You may just have like the able to claim like the scars, and if the scars are painful or keloid or a certain length and dimension, or if the secondaries cause other issues, then you have options there also as far as secondaries. But it all depends on what the actual condition is and what were the residuals of the surgery if the surgery addressed the issues. Because if it addressed the issues, there's no longer a disability, but you could have residuals.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point. 100%. And this is because you brought it up, right? This is one of the things that most folks won't kind of talk about, right? Especially when we're looking at like TBI. One of the most common things we see a lot is veterans who have TBI and they lump it with migraines or they lump it with PTSD. And the fact is, this goes into pyramiding, right? This goes into now symptoms. And what veterans don't understand, again, we could do a whole different class on TBI, which is probably on our to-do thing of the things to talk about. But when it comes to TBI specifically, most of the time, right, you have an incident that happens, an IED or what have you, or an accident, whatever. It is a traumatic event, and let's say there's a PTSD tied to it, and in turn there's TBI as well. Now, the fact that a veteran can't speak to other things that are happening on the brain side, think about it. The brain is connected to everything. So most veterans not knowing what to talk about, they'll talk about, for example, things like the mood, the mental health side. But look at all the other areas, right? What about the social interaction? What about orientation? What about your motor skills? What about visual spatial orientation, right? What's happening on the neurological side? Again, we talk about the neurological side that gets tied in sometimes with the mental health side. But what about the communication side or consciousness side? So that's things that people don't talk about, where it's like, yes, I have a TBI, but it's not just, hey, I have depression or anxiety tied to it. I also have communication issues. I have visual issues. I have other things that are happening that are residuals of the TBI, but the inability to talk about those residuals makes it to where now when it's being rated, it's like, well, everything that Nayeli said about her TBI is really kind of tied into her PTSD, so they lump it together. Or you're just saying about the fact that you get migraines and headaches because of TBI, but you're not talking about the other residual symptoms. So in turn, guess what? It gets lumped together. So those are instances where, again, back to kind of like the joke, right? It's you can't Google that because you don't know. So you're just saying, hey, I have these things, but there's a concept of pyramiding. The VA has to be able to distinguish what's happening. Okay, yes, Nelly has migraines, but she also has TBI, and here are the other things that she's dealing with beyond migraines or beyond the mental health side of the house. So that's something there for an example that many veterans don't understand or don't get right, when it comes to this. So again, more claims related there. I think that's kind of something to touch on. Neely, a question came in on the Facebook side. We want to hit it as I switch screens here. For records, that's a big one there. So if you want to, feel free to hit
I
it.
was about to jump onto that one. So a couple of things. One, how long ago were you in? And then two, Archives does this. When Archives had that fire and they lost those records for the period that they did, they provide a letter to the veteran when the veteran requests the records and say that the records were part of a fire. So are they willing to give you a statement or a letter to say that they lost your records in the hospital or whatnot, or they just don't have them? That could help your argument. But what if you're trying to claim a shoulder injury and you were treated while you were in service? Is there anything else, maybe not the full extent of what happened to your shoulder, in your service treatment records date, or did you just automatically go to Naval Hospital? And then two, in the absence of records, you could write a buddy statement for somebody who witnessed your incident firsthand, who somebody was around you. Did somebody have to drive you to the hospital? Did they have to write a log on, like for example, on the ship? I know, well, actually all my co-hosts can see, Jerry and Reggie, when you had an incident in the ship and you had to be taken somewhere, there's a log to it. Can you get the ship's
Yep.
log? Can you get a record? So there's a couple of ways, depending on what you're trying to do and how you're addressing it, that you can get it. But firsthand statements from witnesses, ship's log, if you had an incident and any of that happened. Oh, well, most people weren't around. 1977. So it is going to be a little difficult there. So I think for the service member on the TikTok side, this is what I've always tell veterans now. If any hospitalizations offside base, we get this a lot with veterans in Germany. Like, get your records before you leave. Get your hospital records, your service records, and your personnel records. So if they lost your records from 77, are they able to provide any documentation? Again, Archives, I think, I can't remember the years for Archives, but Archives does give you a letter to say your records were part of the fire, and the VA uses that. But in your instance in 77, how can you close those gaps? Another thing that you could do is, if you got out and immediately after you got out you started getting treatment, can you get records from like your chiropractor or your family doctor, anything that says that you continuously had treatment from it? That could help.
And I look at this, and this is what's cool about how we look at things, because like Nieli sees it one way, But then I look at this from another perspective as well, which again it complements. So with my background, I come from a law enforcement background and counterterrorism background. So when I look at things like this, I look at it like a crime scene and working our way backwards. So here's a fact, and that's George, by the way, Powers, who was asking the questions. When a veteran has, let's say, a shoulder situation like that, here's the facts. You can go right now to an orthopedic surgeon and get a complete workup done. And they'll literally say, you know what, Jerry, that shoulder situation you have, yeah, that's not from the yesterday. That's about a 20-year injury you have there. Because the body keeps the score, right? When you have an injury that's old, trust me, those specialists will be able to tell you almost to a T. Like, that's not wear and tear, Jerry. I don't care how old you are. You got hit by a car at some point, and that's not a new injury. So my point of saying that is that there are instances where working backwards, sometimes we have to piece together things. Can you go and get seen today, but let's say by an orthopedic surgeon who can really deep dive, evaluate your shoulder, say, yep, this is definitely at least a 40-year injury. That gives us something to work with. To Neely's point, right? Did you get care afterward? Did you get seen by someone afterward? But also, the fact is you have a specialist saying, hey, this is not a injury from right now. This is something where either, again, you fell off a car, jumped out of a plane, or you had something happen because it's not wear and tear based off your age. That also gives us another point to work backwards. So let's say, for example, Jerry is in George's position, right? He has a surgery, they lose all the records, but the fact is your shoulder is jacked. And an orthopedic surgeon says, yep, you still need surgery, or whatever they did, that was a wrong surgery because you may have had some work done, but the way they did it, right? Like if you got teeth work done back in the day, they put metal in your mouth. Now they don't do that. All that works into play. You have now a current assessment of what you have. Then, in turn, you can have a medical opinion to start piecing it together to where, hey, this veteran doesn't have these records, but here is an orthopedic surgeon showing what the person has. Here's a medical opinion adding to that, saying, in Jerry's case, yeah, it's about a 20-year injury, which coincides with when he said he got out of service. And in turn, right, this is my opinion, right? This is something that's not wear and tear. This may well be something tied back to. So working our way backwards, adds to that. So if you've seen a chiropractor, or you've seen anyone, that's one part. Then you adding some of those other medical pieces into it. And again, it takes, like to Daly's point, it takes work. It's not easy to have to go and do the runaround, but in the absence of some of those records, you'd be surprised how much a medical opinion or records or an assessment from a specialist goes. And again, that's something sometimes we don't do because let's say Reggie's hips, if he goes to see an orthopedic surgeon who specializes, let's say, like I, for example, it's like my coccyx and some of the physical injuries, I went to a sports medicine orthopedic surgeon who specialized in injuries and high impact things. Now, why did I do that? Because I don't want to go to a regular doctor. I wanted to go to someone who deals with athletes or deals with trauma at that level. Literally, he looks at my stuff and he's like, nope, that's wrong. What happened was this. Because again, that person is a specialist. And people wouldn't think about that, but it's like, think about it, right? It's like either you were playing sports or you got injured. So I want to work with someone who can look at me, who literally deals with that. Not just a general practitioner who looks at an x-ray and says, oh, it looks like this is kind of out of, no. A specialist will be able to go beyond that and can tell you more. So that's an example of how to work it backwards. And again, I'm not going to deep dive too much, but that's just one example of like, look at how much thought has to go into that. You can't Google that. Like that's us problem solving how to do a thing. Of Neely's point, did you see a chiropractor? Did you see certain things? Okay, rewind. Who have you seen? Well, I went to go see my general practitioner or a regular, orthopedic person. Maybe go see a sports medicine doctor. Maybe go see someone who deals with athletes and deals with people who have accidents like that. Like you'd be surprised the skill set of someone who'll be able to look and say, they got it wrong. This is actually not that. Because whenever, back to second opinion, Jerry has a medical diagnosis, goes to a specialist and he says, no, that's not what it is. It's not that advanced. Or no, you need to do this right now. Because that's all they do, right? So those are some other points to be able to add, right, to how we can problem solve something and be able to talk through it. Because it's this perspective of like, you know what, I never thought about actually, doing this or doing that. So that's not uncommon for people missing records.
I think you said George. What's his name?
Yeah,
George.
Yeah.
So bigger strategy picture here. what is the shoulder going to accomplish for your overall rating? Is it going to move the needle for you? Is it worth the trouble? Or do you have higher value claims to develop and then kind of while you work your shoulder documentation, work higher value claims? So big picture strategy. What is it going to do for your claim to move the needle for you if your goal is 100? Or, it could just be that that's the last thing you need to do. So definitely worth the time, getting
Hmm.
records, seeing specialists and all that stuff. But if it's not going to help you get to your goal and it's very like work intensive, maybe you have higher items that
Hmm.
you could work on while you develop the shoulder.
They said they've
Um,
sent records from the hospital, but it's been almost a year with no report back. And that's again back to the problem, to Neely's
mhm,
point of literally that run around doing that, where we're pursuing certain things right now, and it could literally be that hey, that stuff pops up right as towards the end, and it may be something to use for the last hump, or it may be that on this go you're done and done, and it doesn't make a material difference too, right? So that's one of those things where there's so many ways this all can play out, because sometimes it takes time, right? But we're actively working on other things though, until those missing pieces kind of come into play. Yep. But
yep.
we could definitely deep dive that too with George. He's one of ours,
Mhm,
so for sure.
mhm.
Um,
For the a question in TikTok, how hard to get a service connection for diabetes after service? It depends. How long after service we diagnose? Did you have any symptomology of it before? Was it misdiagnosed before? Any of those things. Then two, are you doing direct? Do you have a secondary path? Do you have a presumptive path? So it's not necessarily a conversation of how hard, rather do you have a path for it?
right.
Because you can go at it in a couple different ways. It could be a secondary, because it's cost, or aggravated by something else. It could be a presumptive depending on your era.
Hmm.
If you got diagnosed within a year of leaving service, it could be service connected. It really
But
just
give it break it down right now. Actually, a quick example. Let's take Jerry, Reggie, and myself. Three different services times, three different backgrounds, three different ages, right? Let's say we're all dealing with diabetes. We're all going to have different pathways to service connected. So let's say for
Mhm.
Jerry, he has a presumptive because let's say Agent Orange. That's his
Mhm.
path. Jerry and I mean Reggie in turn, let's say, was diagnosed in service and is able to kind of go at it that way. Different conversation. I in turn, let's say, developed symptoms after the fact within a certain window and come at it that way. And to Neely's point, that's the part no one sees, because the three of us have diabetes, let's say, service connected, but the path to service connection for all three of us was completely different, because you have to also look at the way that Jerry is filing his, diabetes claim is different from
Mhm.
mine. I'm not going at it from a presumptive perspective. And again, how we go at this. Again, Reggie was proactive to go in service and get things diagnosed and was able to exit service with that service connected. Jerry maybe waited, 20, 30 years to file that claim, and I in turn am in the window to be able to show within that 12 month, after service that hey, I've actually had these symptoms. I just never put two and two together. Different situations, but back to Nelly's point, it's how we construct the argument. And I think that's the science. That's the sweet spot, because to me it's almost like
Mhm.
problem solving. So when people tell us something like that, it's just like, all right, let's figure it out. How can we, try to decipher that and break it down? So yeah, it's not a hard conversation. Excuse me. It's more so a, well, how do you solve the problem? And again, someone
Mhm.
can be like, well, you have to have a presumptive. Not really. That's one way. Again, there's different ways to service connection. So okay, let's see. We'll do a five. Let's do like a 5 minute warning as we begin to shut down. We'll take a few last questions. I don't know if you saw LB's question that came up.
I did. Unfortunately, I don't know a whole lot of the veteran benefits as they relate to immigration status, but as far as just like conviction of a crime, veterans benefits do get dropped due to like incarceration and things like that. The
Hmm.
benefits do get dropped to 10% if a
Right.
veteran is like incarcerated. Um,
Do
but I
they have
don't know.
benefits currently? Have they filed for it? Are they receiving
Mhm.
it? Because again, to that question, right? If you're incarcerated, are you receiving benefits? Because if you are, then that puts you in a certain category. If you've never filed, right? What is the rationale behind that? What is the character of discharge? Is the incarceration happening right after service, during service, or well after it? So, I mean, there's different ways to even break that one down. when you add the green card aspect, your veteran status, if you, let's say, for all intents and purposes, you meet them and you have your 214 and you have your honorable and all that stuff, and you've served and you meet the requirements, you have your status. Now, if you're incarcerated and you've never filed for it, right, you fall into the category where certain benefits are not going to be allowed to you because of the fact that you are in incarcerated status.
Mhm.
But once you leave, right, that status, right, it's not like you just lose the thing per se, right? There's different ways that kind of goes that. You may have a period where you're ineligible because of the situations that are happening, but it's not, you know what I mean? So it depends, right? There's a few more pieces that have to be looked at there,
Mhm.
aka what Nelly just said. So as we start to wrap, we'll kick it over to Reggie for some closing thoughts as we see some of the questions that come. Okay, thanks for the info. It was after he's out now. Yeah, so he should be able to, again, given the situation there, again, we could take that offline, LB, and kind of, get a little more detailed because then it goes into like, the incarceration length, is it a felony situation, a misdemeanor situation, what kind of, what I mean? Like there's a lot of other little nuances that, we can ask to kind of look at how that all falls into place. But that's a great question because again, if you don't know, you don't know. So we appreciate, even that question there. Reggie, over to you. Closing thoughts, my brother.
Man, tonight was great. Especially the recap for the trip to Colorado Springs. Definitely a moment that we're going to recapture again, either in North Carolina or in Texas. But one way or
Mm.
another,
Texas.
we're going to recap it again and have a good time. So, but yeah, appreciative for that. And thanks to everyone joining us tonight. We had a great time on answering those questions. And yeah, we look forward to doing another Friday night again.
100%. Jerry, over to you, my brother, for some closing thoughts.
Oh, what a wonderful night. We covered so many things, and I sure appreciate all the good things that were said about me, and all of the good things that we've talked about in terms of claims. I'm sure there's a lot of good information there that claims are going to get satisfied now. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you, my brother. Um, let's see. Someone said, "Come to North Carolina. I need y'all's help." We don't have to come to North Carolina to help you. We're here. We're virtual, so we can definitely help in many different ways.
Yeah.
Let's see. As far as because that what question that came up. So this is a good point too, because sometimes folks will ask questions. Some things are spelled out in the rating criteria. Some things are not. Right. So when you look at, let's say, hey, can I file for this because it's a development from that? There are instances where we have analogous ratings, and what that means is, for example, I cannot file a claim just from a prostate. Right. It's ultimately, hey, there's not a thing that says prostate is the issue, but there may be instances where I'm having, let's say, urinary frequency or voiding dysfunction, and it's rated analogous. So there are instances where unlisted conditions that are encountered, right, are going to be rated closely to another. So it comes down to, first of all, in the eye condition, right? If you have, a visual impairment as is, and then secondary to that, you've developed another issue, right? The first question is your eye condition or visual condition service connected? Is there a nexus to service to show that? If so, and again, I think about Ronis, right? So one of our, brothers in arms, he had an injury in service where he had an accident towards his eyes, and like there was like a retina problem, things like that. So the point is now, let's say that gets rectified, that gets rated, but now he develops other issues because of, let's say, the retina detachment or reattachment or what have you. Now that creates a conversation, right? So there are instances where some things may not be spelled out, but there's a pathway there, right? So rewind to your question specifically, JD, right? It comes down to what are you rated for currently? Is there something on the visual side, let's say, that you have a nexus to, because that's the first part. So can things be filed? You can file for all kinds of stuff. You'd be surprised at stuff the VA has literally rated a veteran for, but the argument to get there, that's the whole point, right? So rewinding, is there something to show, hey, this in turn happened and caused this eye situation, visual impairment, and in turn now I have these secondaries or these other things that are happening. The problem is with many veterans has been out of service so long that, again, Jerry's a pilot. Jerry happens to pick me up and medevac me out of service, out of country. Fast forward 10 years, now the eye condition developed 3 other conditions. I have never filed a claim, and I'm dealing with a myriad of problems. Well, we have to go backwards and say, first of all, what happened in the first place that caused the issue, and in turn, what kind of came afterwards. So the longer someone's been out, the harder it is sometimes to make the argument of how we're connecting certain things. So that's something just to kind of put out there. And somebody said Nayeli, they were stationed in.
I know. I was about to ask you who was that. I drive through Kingsville, not so much now, but I was driving through Kingsville like once a month because my family is still in Mexico. And I have a lot of family in the valley, so I drive through Kingsville quite often.
Yeah.
So
it's in the Facebook
for the
group.
veteran about the eye condition. So, you were saying anything is possible, but for eye conditions especially, is a lot of the times the VA looks at those eye conditions as congenital, so they'll deny it. So they'll kind of like look for the way of when did you have it, how did it occur, because visual impairments are usually rated if they are traumatic. So if it wasn't like a traumatic incident that led to that, the 9 times out of 10 look at it as natural progression or congenital. For example, I had multiple eye surgeries, like in my eyelid. Like I can't remember what they're called, but I applied for it and they were denied, and they were just like, it's just a part of progression in your eyes. I have severe astigmatism, so they're like, it has nothing to do with service. Although I had multiple surgeries for it in service, just because eye vision stuff like that is usually looked at as congenital unless it is traumatic, like an incident.
AKA you is blind. Got it.
I am blind. I am.
Uh, Long Rod Van, I need your help. Been fined for 18. And again, that's it's not. Please understand, folks. We're not picking on anyone, but again, you've been fined for 18 years to solve a problem that you haven't been able to solve. The problem when someone says just Google it, that doesn't help you. You've been fighting for 18 years trying to figure out how to solve a problem, and just being given, hey, you don't need to talk to anyone, just figure it out. Google, do what I did. Well, how has that worked out for you? Because you want to spend 2 more years and spend 20 years waiting. So send a message. You're on TikTok through Instagram, and Nayeli or myself, mostly Nayeli, will be able to respond back to you and take the conversation offline, kind of see what you got going on. Long run, to be able to see what's going on, where you're at. And again, it might be a thing where literally the answer is right in front of you and you just never knew it, or it might be like, wait a second, you need a little more detailed stuff. So send a message through Instagram, because again, as you can see on TikTok, it's just impossible to manage that. So we created a new team page on Instagram, and we are able to answer it as a team there. So myself or Nayeli, again, mostly Nayeli, will be answering the question unless I get pulled into it, because we're doing a whole bunch of different things. But yeah, send a message and we'll be able to kind of take that offline and at least give you some perspective. Both same thing for you, Jeff, on your side of the house for what you're dealing with. Neely, your closing thoughts.
So for the people who may need more in-depth assistance or may want to book a call, either send me a message on Veterans Network Instagram, or you can sign up at www.joinus.vet. Select DP's name from the drop-down menu, and you will either be talking to me or to DP whenever you schedule a call. So those are your 2 options: Instagram. But depending on how in depth we can get and based on your situation, probably your best bet would be www.joinus.vet. Select DP's name from the drop down, and you will either get me or DP on a one-on-one call. But other than
this
that,
is just literally just for people to know, all you're doing is literally just giving us your number to reach out to you. That's it. You're not signing a contract, you're not paying a thing.
Yep.
It's just there has to be order to how we do this, because it's an influx of a lot of people. And it's like, well, you didn't get back to me. Well, I'm sorry, but there's a process. You know what I'm saying? Like literally look at the views, look at the comments. So this is one of the ways to do that. But at joinus.vet, .vet. Or head on over to our website.
There's no contract, there's no commitment, there's no paying, there's no credit card, there's nothing. It's just your information so that we can get it. If Kings does lets us know, hey, you need to schedule a call, or you need to reach out to James or Jeff. So there's nothing to it.
But there's the website. It just
sometimes makes it a little easier.
So you can see it right there. Literally, veteransnetwork.club. Drop the links in my bio. head over to claim support. Literally, there's a bunch of information here. You can go ahead and read up on things. If you want to get some support, that'll take you to joinus.vet, so you'll be able to, reach us there. Again, the same page I just showed you. So if you click on that folder, that'll take you there. If you want to read or learn information, the pay chart, that information is there in those folders. And we have a bunch of cool stuff at our club shop. If you click on the club shop, literally go over to free downloads, and you'll be able to see kind of what we're doing. And you'll see literally PDFs, and we have a whole bunch more coming. So shout out to Lisa on the back end, doing some of the work she's doing, putting stuff together. But these are some of the things that you'll be able to see. Again, literally click on the yellow button, and there's a form. Again, you're not having to sign up and do none of that stuff. It's there. If you want to talk to us, there's a link, joinus.vet. But great information that's there, again, for migraines, right? What is a migraine? What are the symptoms? And then how is it rated? Again, so we look at putting these documents together, and also what does 50% mean if you've never filed a claim, or 30%? We put the monetary number there so you know what that is. So we take some pride in kind of putting things together the way we would like to have seen them. We talked about sleep apnea a little bit today. So, for example, if you click on the sleep apnea PDF, there's a lot of good information there. You can see what sleep apnea is, what are some of the symptoms, some of the things people won't even know about that sleep apnea can affect, to include the rating criteria, how it's broken down, etc. So a lot of great information that's there. But again, at veteransnetwork.club or joinus.vet, you can talk to us. And on our VNCC class, you'll see some of the workshops and things that we're putting together. So a lot of cool stuff is on the way as far as that's concerned. So that's how you can find us as far as that's concerned. Back to you, Nelly, in case you had anything else after that, since you
No,
website,
just
I wanted to make sure I showed it.
no, just thank you all for joining. Thank you for all the questions. Hopefully, some of the questions change your perspective of the resources that you have available. Yes, all the information is free on the internet, but you don't know what you don't know, and so if you don't know what you don't know, you're not Googling right information. So ask questions, join us. We have a lot of free classes that we post regularly. Send us a message, sign up for a call. If all you may just need that one encouraging call. The website to sign up for a call is www.joinus.vet. If you just want to check out our website for the resources, or just to look around, the website is veteransnetwork.club.
And on my page on TikTok, just click on the link tree. It'll take you there, and literally you'll see the links right there. So if you want to talk to us, click the first link.
Yep.
If you want to jump into our Wednesday classes that we have, there's a free. Click on the link there, and you can check us out. Check out our Facebook group. So all the information right there is there for you all to look at that. So if you click on that first link, it'll take you to the joinus.vet. What's the PDF that just went over on migraines, please? So that's actually
on the website.
Yep, right there.
And then
click downloads right there. Boop. Oh, look at there it is. On my link tree. Click on the downloads, and you'll see
on Instagram. You can find it on the link tree on Instagram. That takes you back to the website. For people on TikTok who try to get messages to DP and you cannot get through the messages just because of the way it's set up, click the link for Instagram on his bio, and you can send us a DM via Instagram. Either DP or myself will answer those, most likely me. But yeah, those are a couple of ways to reach out to us. Again, thank you all for joining us, for the questions. And we'll see y'all next Friday Night Live.
Yeah. So we appreciate you all hanging out with us. Thanks for joining. Click the link. Make sure you're following. There's much more to come. Excited for 2023. We'll have the crew back with us, so hopefully everything will be good to go as far as systems and all that stuff. So you're welcome, Doris. Looking forward to speaking to everybody. Ryan and Amy, you will see them on the next go. Jerry, thanks for hanging out with us, like a G, literally out here putting on all these extra hours with us. So buenas noches, good people, and we will see y'all next time. All right, appreciate y'all. Dum, 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 dum.